Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the 36th episode of the story, where Naruto is raised by Jiraiya and Tsunade. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel after watching the video. So, let us begin. A few days after the battle on the forests of the Land of Frost, another army of white Zetsu and impure world resurrection zombies was detected, this one cutting through the Land of Fire, in direct route to Konoha. It seems they alternate their targets between Konoha and Kumo each time. A pattern, perhaps? Anoki suggested. Who knows? That's not important now, Jiraiya said, before he turned towards Ao. Ao-san, which division is closest to the enemy position? Ao focused, as his sensing abilities expanded. In no time, he managed to detect all the nearby friendly ninja in the Land of Fire. The Raikage's first division is the closest to it, Ao said. There's also Kuratsuchi's second division and Tsunade's medical division as well. Good. Send a message to the Raikage to intercept the enemy. He'll be happy to have a chance to break some skulls, Jiraiya told Ao. Shouldn't we move the other two divisions as well? Or one of them at the very least? Anoki suggested. Jiraiya shook his head. Akatsuki probably knows the position of our troops, and they may be baiting us to move all our forces into a single point to leave other areas unprotected. We'll keep those in standby as they're relatively close to the first division's position. Suddenly, a ninja from Suna, given the uniform, burst into the room, holding a sealed folder. Supreme Commander, we just received the scout's report of the details about the enemy forces, the Suna scout said. Jiraiya nodded, took the folder, opened it, and carefully read its contents. His expression darkened with each name of the reanimations that have been spotted. It seemed that Orochimaru wanted to reopen old wounds on top of creating new ones. Orochimaru, this is a low blow, Jiraiya growled. Something you may want to share with us, Supreme Commander? Anoki asked. We're a bit in the dark here. Several of the reanimations spotted are Konoha ninjas who died during the Uchiha insurrection. He then looked at Shikaku, as color left the Nara leader's face. Including clan heads Hayashi Hyuga and Inoichi Yamanaka. Shikaku's shock was replaced by anger as his expression hardened and his hands were clenched into fists. My boy and his teammates are part of the first division. Inoichi wasn't just Ino's father, he was like an uncle for Shikamaru and Choji. Seeing him defiled like that is going to break them. I don't want to sound insensitive, Shikaku-san, but if those kids are ninjas, they aren't kids anymore, Chio intervened. They should be ready to face such a challenge. And they will face it but not alone, Shikaku said, before turning at Jiraiya. Supreme Commander, I know I'm part of the intelligence division, but this is a special circumstance. I hereby ask for permission to go into the battlefield. There was a moment of silence as the Toad Sage locked eyes with the Nara clan need. Even if Jiraiya was regrettably out of the village when the insurrection happened, he did hear some of the details. Among them, how Inoichi died, and how Shikaku watched him die. The man probably blamed himself for his friend's death. Maybe Shikaku can help Inoichi find closure, so we can get rid of a reanimation, Jiraiya thought, before making his decision. Very well then. Permission granted. Good. Then I'll go immediately. Even at a good pace, I'll take some time to reach there. Leave that to me, Shikaku-san, Jiraiya said before biting his thumb and making 5 hand seals. Summoning Jutsu. Jiraiya slammed his palm into the ground, summoned a large orange toad with dark green markings and yellow eyes. Jiraiya then wrote something into a scroll, and gave it to the toad. Gamma, please take Shikaku-san to this coordinates. Can you do that? Wordlessly, the toad shot his tongue at the surprised Shikaku, before pulling the Nara into his mouth and swallowing him whole, much to everybody else's horror. Then, the toad disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Jiraiya noticed the looks of bewilderment the others were shooting at him. What? None of you guys travel by toad? Stop giving me those looks, he will be fine, the Sannin said in an annoyed tone. Forests of the Land of Fire. Fortunately, it took no time for the 1st Division to intercept the marching Akatsuki army en route to Konoha, catching them still far away from the village. The Raikage led from the vanguard. He had traded his usual white haori for the standard Kumo flak jacket, which he wore over his bare chest. He hadn't wore such flak jacket since the 3rd Ninja War, and couldn't help but admit, with a small hint of sadness, that it was fitting that another war would make him put it on again. The enemy approached, heralded by a cloud of dust. The scouts from the Hyuga clan already warned that 2 lines of Zetsu brutes led the charge. The Raikage had read the reports from the other divisions on these creatures. Made from several normal white Zetsu clones merging together, they were much stronger than the sum of their components, had near unlimited endurance, and only extremely powerful strikes or jutsu could put them down for good. The Raikage smiled. He loved to hear somebody describing an enemy in such terms. When he heard about something being very hard, he couldn't help but test how much of his strength it would take to break it. Raikage-sama, they'll be here soon, an IWA ninja asked. Your orders? The answer came in the form of a burst of chakra, as an aura of blue light and crackling sparks flared around the leader of Kumo. They plan to break our formation with an onslaught, the Raikage said. So we break their formation first. And in an instant, the Raikage was gone. In less than 2 seconds, he crossed the distance between them and the enemy lines, and sunk his fist into the gut of a Zetsu brute. The force of the punch, coupled with the momentum of his charge, added so much power to the hit that the artificial monster burst into multiple chunks of goo. It happened so fast, his fellow Zetsu didn't notice what had happened. Which proved to be a fatal mistake, as the Raikage, who still kept some momentum from the initial charge, moved to the left and elbowed another brute, blowing 2 of his arms and pushing it against another one. Finally, the Zetsu stopped their charge, realizing that somebody was making a number on their ranks. A brute charged the Raikage from behind, 2 of his arms morphing into blades, and tried to skewer him. However, the Raikage proved to be much faster than his enemy, and not only avoided the attack, but placed himself behind the giant creature. He wrapped his arms around the brute's waist and suplexed it into the ground with such force, it opened a crater while releasing lightning bottles everywhere, while pushing the enemies away from him. The Raikage looked back, and saw that his troops didn't even move, watching in awe the spectacle that was his fighting. This brought an ugly snarl to his face. What the hell are you looking at? Onwards, he yelled. After a couple seconds of silence, the Raikage's order was replied by a chorus of battle cries, and the 1st Division charged forward, their morale invigorated. Soon, it was the Akatsuki army who found itself at the mercy of an unstoppable enemy onslaught. Despite the Raikage successfully breaking the enemy formation, the first lines at least, the Zetsu brutes still proved to be very resilient enemies, being able to shake off low and mid-power jutsu, while literally ripping in part the unfortunate ninjas who got too close for them. Let the chakra golems go first. Shikamaru shouted, as the aforementioned metallic constructs stomped their way forward. Many of them raised their arms, releasing streams of fire from the flamethrowers mounted on their forearms. While they proved to be effective burning the smaller Zetsu, the larger ones were more resilient. Okay, it's time for us to enter the fray. Ino, with me. Choji, stay behind us and guard our backs. You got it, the Akimichi replied. Alright, let's go. Ino said, already seeing her first victim, a Zetsu brute struggling against a chakra golem, and made a hand seal. You're mine. Mind disturbance jutsu. The Zetsu brute lost control of his body, much to his confusion, and disengaged the chakra golem to attack a fellow brute fighting some Kiri and Kumo ninjas. Another brute and a couple of normal Zetsu quickly identified the source of the disruption, and charged towards the Yamanaka clan head. Good work, Ino. Keep going forward. Now's my turn. Shikamaru said, making his clan's signature hand seal as well. Shadow imitation jutsu. Shikamaru's shadow darkened and elongated, spreading forward, while also splitting into multiple threads, one for each Zetsu coming towards them. The moment the shadow threads connected with their shadows, the artificial creatures were stopped on the spot. Good. Now, stay still while I kill you, Shikamaru said with a smirk, as his hands formed the rat and the bird seal. Shadow stitching jutsu. Suddenly, several black needles materialized from the shadows, impaling the Zetsu, who screamed in pain as they were almost instantly killed. However, the Zetsu brute, even if he was in obvious pain, managed to survive. He even shot Shikamaru a mocking smirk. You'll need something stronger than a few pinpricks to kill me, Konoha scum, the Zetsu brute said, as he tried to overpower Shikamaru's binding jutsu. Shikamaru smirked back, as his hand started to do more hand seals. How about this, then? Fire release, shadow fire thread. A stream of fire moved through Shikamaru's shadow towards the immobilized Zetsu brute, as if the shadows were trails of oil. Soon, the Zetsu brute was engulfed by a roaring inferno. The creature let out a scream of pain as the flames devoured his flesh. And that wasn't even the end of it. Here, have this as well, Shikamaru said, as he tossed forward two kunai with explosive tags attached to them. The paper notes detonated the moment the fire touched them, putting the Zetsu brute out of its misery. Phew. One down, dozens remain. Wonder if we can do something to dash Shikamaru. Watch out, the Nara heard Choji's voice warning him from behind. Shikamaru pulled out a kunai just in time to see two normal Zetsu clones lunging at him from the flanks. While he could parry the attack of one of them, he'd be at the mercy of the other. Fortunately, Shikamaru didn't have to worry about anything as two giant hands caught one of the Zetsu each, before they slammed them into the ground, killing them. Good one, Choji, Shikamaru praised. Choji's arms shrunk to normal size, as he smiled at Shikamaru. Hey, you told me to cover your backs, and I will do that no matter what. Vacuum palm. Choji was suddenly hit by a vacuum shell on the side of his head, which sent him sprawling on the floor. Choji! Shikamaru cried, and turned to the direction of the attack. There, an undead Hyuga, a man with shoulder-length brown hair and delicate features. Main house, given his clean forehead. The man was in the clan's usual battle stance, stood there ready to attack. Shikamaru wasted no time. Shadow imitation jutsu. From Shikamaru's shadow, multiple shadow threads rocketed towards the Hyuga reanimation, but the man expertly dodged them, carefully timing his steps. I'm sorry, Nara, I wish you no harm, but my actions aren't my own, the Hyuga apologized, as he dashed towards Shikamaru. 8 trigrams, 32 human tank bullet jutsu. Shikamaru jumped sideways just as Choji, transformed into a giant spinning meat sphere, rolled forward towards the Hyuga, carving a furrow on the ground as it moved. The Hyuga cancelled his combo, and went for the clan's defensive move. Heavenly spin. The Hyuga started to spin, turning into a rotating chakra dome, which formed just in time to parry Choji's attack. Both attacks struggled and grinded against each other, but in the end, the heavenly spin proved to be more powerful, and Choji was pushed backwards. The Akimichi air quickly returned to normal, as he landed on his back, letting out a grunt of pain. Choji! Shikamaru shouted again. But he was unable to assist his fallen friend, since the Hyuga stopped spinning and charged towards Shikamaru. Shit! Shadow dash, lightning release, lightning flash. Suddenly, bright white light filled the area, making Shikamaru to instinctively shield his eyes in order to protect them. The Hyuga, however, wasn't so lucky, and thanks to his Byakugan, the damage to his sight was even greater. Lightning release, thunder blade. As the bright light dimmed down, a dark-skinned, red-headed kunoichi wielding a katana crackling with electricity passed Shikamaru, rushing towards the blinded Hyuga. She delivered several quick swipes, cutting both the arms and the head of the reanimation, whose body fell on its back lifelessly. It seems we arrived just in time, the red-haired kunoichi said. Karui. Choji happily said, now back on his feet, and rushed towards her. Thanks a lot. We owe you one. You'll have plenty of chances to repay me, Karui said, as her teammates Omoi and T quickly went to the fallen reanimation and started to apply chakra and movement suppression sealing tags. You guys are okay? I've been better, but I could have been worse, Shikamaru admitted. Nice timing. It was luck that we saw you here. By the way, why didn't you move since the battle began? Karui asked. You guys are sitting ducks if you stay in the open like that. We were protecting Asuma-sensei before he finished, Choji mentioned, and looked back. Karui looked at where Choji was looking at, and saw the bearded Jonin sitting on the ground in the lotus position with his eyes closed. The hell? What is that guy doing? Karui asked, half surprised, half outraged. Finished doing what? Gathering nature energy, Shikamaru said. And just on cue, Asuma opened his eyes, which were yellow rather than dark brown, and had thin red lines around them. Gathering complete. My sage mode is ready, Asuma said, as he pulled out his trench knives. Channeling chakra through them, the knives projected a long blade of blue light. Whoa! It was never this big before. The earth started to rumble, and the Konoha and Kumo ninjas noticed a multitude of white Zetsu clones, led by 3 Zetsu brutes, charging towards them. Just like I said before, sitting ducks. Karui said, before turning towards the Konoha ninjas. Come on, we need to rejoin the main group. Wait. I think I can take care of this group on my own, Asuma said, taking a step forward. Raising one of his chakra blades, he delivered an horizontal swing in his general direction. With that move, Asuma released a crescent-shaped chakra wave, which flew forward towards the incoming group of enemies. The moment Asuma's attack touched the incoming enemies, they were sliced in half, as if they were made of butter. The wave still carried enough power and momentum to continue flying forward, cutting more enemies until it dispelled. Wow, Karui said in awe. I really need to learn how to do that. I can talk with the guy that taught me senjutsu if you want, Asuma said. But it will have to be another moment. Now we have a battle to win. His confidence reinvigorated by his new power, Asuma rushed forward. Shikamaru and Choji were going to follow him, when that moment a giant toad landed seemingly out of nowhere in front of them. And their surprise grew even further when the toad regurgitated a very disgusted Shikaku. Dad? Shikamaru asked, as he ran towards his father. What are you doing here? And what were you doing inside a toad? Hokage-sama said it was the fastest way to get me to the battlefield, Shikaku said, coughing and wiping slime from his body. Though I don't think I'll want to do that ever again. Yeah, Ino said the same thing when she had to get inside a toad, Choji said, as he and Shikamaru helped Shikaku on his feet. Why are you here, Dad? I had to come. Our scouts told us that one of the reanimations on this division is no other than Inoichi, Shikaku explained. Both Shikamaru and Choji's eyes grew wide as their mouths were left wide open, though Shikamaru quickly shook off the shock. Of course. It makes sense that Orochimaru would revive him, Shikamaru said, shaking his head in disgust. It was only a matter of time until we had to fight somebody close to us. Then Choji began. No more words were needed, as they quickly went to look for their blonde teammate, hoping that they would get to her before she saw her defiled form of her deceased father. 16 strikes, 32 strikes, 64 strikes. Not far away from there, another Hyuga reanimation was in the middle of a fight. This one, though, was much stronger than the one Karui defeated. At his feet laid the bodies of the ninjas from multiple villages he had just defeated, some of them deaf, others just unconscious or paralyzed, fallen victim of the zombies' martial prowess. More allied ninjas appeared to replace the ones Hayashi had defeated. 2 from Konoha, another from Kiri, another from IWA, and 1 from AIM. The former Hyuga clan head was still wrapping his head around seeing ninjas from so many villages fighting together. Despite the fact that other Konoha reanimations gave him an abridged version of what had happened after his death, there were some things that didn't sink in. If you wish to defeat me, I'd avoid engaging me in close combat, Hayashi advised, seeing that his new opponents all were holding weapons of some sort, from kunai to katanas to shotos. The Hyuga clan is unbeatable in hand-to-hand combat, and weapons will do you no good. Try ninjutsu instead. Very well then. Thanks for the tip, the IWA Ninja said, as he started to make hand seals as fast as he could. Earth release, crushing avalanche. His companions did the same. Fire release, great dragon fire. Fire release, phoenix sage fire jutsu. Lightning release, thunderbolt. Water release, water shuriken. Large boulders, a stream of fire, smaller fireballs and shuriken made of water flew in perfect formation towards the former clan head. His expression unchanging, he started to spin as chakra was released from his body. Heavenly spin. In less than a second, Hayashi turned into a spinning dome of chakra, rotating so fast and with so much momentum that not only he was able to repel the elemental barrage aimed towards him, but created a shockwave that sent his enemies flying backwards. Unfortunately, you'll need something more powerful than that to make a dent in my defenses, Hayashi said in a somewhat regretful manner. He then dashed forward, his palms flaring with blue chakra. Sorry. I won't enjoy this any more than you will. However, before Hayashi could strike his next victim, he was alerted by the whirring sound of multiple shuriken flying towards him. He broke his charge, deflected some with a few gentle fist strikes, and jumped backwards to dodge the rest. That moment, a newcomer entered the battleground, another Konoha ninja, given the uniform. Though it wasn't just any Konoha ninja, but one Hayashi knew so well. Hello, husband. I was praying that you'd be sent to fight a division other than mine. But alas, fate doesn't appear to be on my side. Hikari, Hayashi said, his expression softening, as his heart whirled with a mixture of sorrow and joy. It makes me so happy to see that you're still alive. Are our daughters okay? And the clan? Both our daughters and the rest of the clan couldn't be better, Hikari said, before turning at the other ninja Hayashi just defeated, who were getting back on their feet. I'll take care of my husband. I'm among the few who knows how to beat him. As you wish, Hyuga-san, one of the Konoha ninjas said, as both he and the rest of his companions left to look for another opponent. You were a strong kunoichi when I was alive, Hikari, but even then you were still weaker than me, Hayashi said, as his body slipped into the standard Hyuga fighting stance. Did your strength and skill grow as much as to eclipse mine during these past years? I'm not sure, but I like to think that they did, Hikari said, mimicking her husband's actions. Guess that there's only one way to find out. Without further ado, Hayashi launched himself at his wife, and delivered a flurry of palm strikes. Hikari was able to block or dodge all of them nimbly, as well as deliver a few good hits herself. Still, her hits were barely able to hurt her husband. You're indeed better than I remember, Hayashi admitted. Though sadly the gentle fist won't work on reanimations like myself. Understood. Let me step up my game then, Hikari said, jumping backwards while making several hand seals, before clapping her hands together. Water release, water palm. Water droplets formed around Hikari, before they gathered on her hands, covering them in a cloak of liquid. Hayashi watched the process with utmost interest. Elemental ninjutsu combined with the gentle fist, that was the idea Hinata mentioned she wanted to develop, Hayashi said in awe. I'm glad you still remember that. Needless to say, yeah, she soused with that. If anything, she took the gentle fist to heights you'd be unable to believe. Oh, if only she was here to show you, as much as I'd like to see how my daughters are and how much they've grown, I prefer if they don't see me in such a wretched state, Hayashi sorrowfully said, before charging forward. Now you'll have the opportunity to test how good that combination is, Hikari. Hikari began her counterattack, delivering palm strikes that released short but power streams of water when she thrust her arms forward. She quickly reared both arms backwards. Water release, double torrent palm. Hikari pushed her hands forward, this time releasing a larger stream of water at her undead husband. Hayashi started to spin as chakra poured from his body. Heavenly spin. Once again, the Hyuga clan's greatest defensive jutsu proved to be enough to keep the former clan head safe. I must admit, seeing the gentle fist combined with elemental ninjutsu is truly a sight to behold, Hayashi praised. You should see what Niji or our daughters are able to do, Hikari replied. Unfortunately, it's still not enough to cause me any harm, Hayashi continued, as his body slipped into a fighting stance once again. For your sake, I hope you have more techniques you can use than the ones you showed me. Heh, I knew beating you wouldn't be this easy. Anyway, fortunately, I do have a couple more tricks under my sleeve, Hikari said, smiling confidently as her hands flew through more hand seals. Water release, walking maelstrom. Water burst around Hikari in large quantities, gathering around her in the shape of a spinning liquid column. Hayashi narrowed his eyes as he scanned the jutsu through the vision of the Byakugan. The water around her is laced with her chakra, hiding her body from the Byakugan, Hayashi concluded. He smirked as his Byakugan instantly deactivated. Good one, Hikari. That way I won't be able to read your movements as long as I have the Byakugan active. Water needle palm. Hikari started to thrust her arms forward in quick succession, releasing a barrage of water needles at her undead husband. In an amazing display of dexterity and speed, Hayashi managed to parry every single one of them with quick strikes of the gentle fist, with the Byakugan still deactivated. Hikari moved forward little by little as she continued her barrage, closing the distance between her and her husband. Until Hayashi suddenly reactivated the Byakugan. 8 trigrams, Mountain Crusher. Thurstating both palms forward, Hayashi released a destructive wave of chakra from them. Hikari was too close to dodge, and took the attack in full, and was violently launched backwards, as the wave of chakra carved a wide furrow on the ground dash. Fortunately, her watery cloak absorbed some of the impact, so the damage wasn't as severe as it could have been. As the Hyuga Kunoichi struggled to get back on her feet while rebuilding her water chakra cloak, her Byakugan picked her husband rushing towards her, ready to continue the beating. Heh, nice, an opportunity to show him another of Hinata's jutsu, Hikari thought, as she smirked. Water release, heavenly rainstorm. Hikari started to spin in place, as she generated more chakra from her body that she instantly turned into more water, encasing herself into a protective watery tornado, just as Hayashi was about to strike her. The former Hyuga clan head felt as if he was trying to fight a tsunami, and this time it was his turn to be pushed backwards. Amazing. Not just the gentle fist, but the heavenly spin too? Hayashi asked. Like I said, you'd be amazed if you could see Hinata and Hanabi now, Hikari replied, after she stopped spinning. Then, her Byakugan picked up something. Huh? That moment, another Hyuga near-identical to her husband landed beside her. Hello, Hikari-san. I saw that you were having a little trouble dealing with my brother, so I'm here to offer my assistance, Hizashi said, and without waiting for an answer, he locked eyes with his brother. Hello, Hayashi. It's been a while since your demise. Hizashi. What are you doing here? Hayashi asked, as panic crept through his back. You need to leave immediately, before I seriously hurt you. Hizashi chuckled as if his brother just told him a joke. Hurt me? Brother, you may have been the firstborn, but I was the stronger of the two. And I'd like to think that I gotten even stronger since then. That's not what I'm talking about. The caged bird seal. I don't think dash, Hayashi said, as his body tensed. I'm sorry, brother. Hayashi's hands formed the hand seal necessary to trigger the caged bird seal. But much to the former clan head's shock, nothing happened. He tried a few more times, but the result was the same. What? Why it isn't working? Hayashi asked, perplexed. It's because I'm a reanimation now. Perhaps this might shed some light on your doubts, brother, Hisashi said, before removing his forehead protector. Hayashi gasped upon seeing that his brother's forehead was devoid of any seal. The seal, it's gone, Hayashi said, shocked. But how? Even if the main house and the elders somehow agreed to do such a thing, the seal was made to be impossible to remove. It happened after your eldest was appointed the new clan head, Hisashi began, as he put the forehead protector back. As for why and how it happened, both questions have the same answer, the Tensigen. The Tensigen? What does that myth has to do with anything? Hayashi asked. Hinata has the Tensigen, Hayashi, Hikari interceded. And so does Hanabi. And the Tensigen granted Hinata the power to remove the caged bird seal without harming the Visitum, Hisashi continued. And yes, most of the main house and the elders opposed her. But both Hinata and Hanabi have the Tensigen, and the two of them were on the same page on this issue. Who was going to oppose them? Hinata brought the Hyuga to a new era, Hayashi, Hikari said. The main and branch houses are no more. Now there's only Hyuga. One clan, as it should always have been. You saw some of the new jutsu your daughters created. Now, let me show you something that my son did, Hisashi said, as he crossed his arms in front of his face. Naturally, this is something my son is much better at, but I'm no slouch at either. Gate of opening, open. Mind disturbance jutsu. The Zetsu brute was paralyzed on the spot, unable to understand why his body moved on his own, and was forced to attack his fellow Zetsu clones. The caster of the jutsu, Ino Yamanaka, couldn't help but let out a chuckle of satisfaction. These creatures might be big and strong, but their minds are just as easily to control as the smaller ones, Ino said, mostly to herself. The better for me. It is true that saying about the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Eventually, her mind-controlled giant Zetsu was destroyed by a reanimation, one possessing a powerful lava-release bloodline limit. She was about to mind-control that reanimation when her sensing abilities noticed something. Among the sea of many chakras around her, she noticed a particular spike of chakra, the kind of spike produced by using mental jutsu, just like the ones from the Yamanaka. Is there another Yamenka out there? The blonde wondered. Get away from me. I can't control my body. She heard some allied ninja scream. A Yamanaka is on the enemy side, she thought, shocked, as she moved towards the source of the disturbance. Of course, it has to be a reanimation. They'll need me to counter them, whoever it is. As she ran, attacking or dodging Zetsu clones that got in her way, she finally saw several allied ninjas fighting against each other. Yes, this was the work of a Yamanaka. Whoever he was, as the new clan head, she would put an end to it. Don't worry guys, I'm here. You won't have to fear, Dino said, before her eyes finally saw the caster in question, and her enthusiasm vanished entirely. D-Daddy? Standing there, much to her horror, was the reanimated form of her father, Inoichi Yamanaka, just like how she remembered him, minus the cracked skin and black eyes. She felt as if somebody punched her in the gut, even if, in hindsight, she should have guessed that if Orochimaru wanted a Yamanaka for his army of zombies, Inoichi was the obvious choice. Maybe her subconscious didn't want to acknowledge the possibility and thus didn't bring it up. No, not you, Ino sobbed, as tears started to gather around her teal eyes. Ino? Inoichi said, finally noticing her daughter. Ino, is that you? Why yes, Daddy, it's me, she croaked. Dear Kami, you've grown so much, Inoichi said, as he appeared he was ready to cry as well. Such a pretty young woman. And I'm sure you're an even better kunoichi. I'm sorry I wasn't there to see you grow up. Yes, I'm a good kunoichi, or that's what I like to think, Ino said, forcing the tear backs, her lip quivering, as he held a kunai. And I'm going to show you how good I am by stopping you. Ino, a new voice said. That moment, Shikamaru, Choji, and Shikaku all landed beside her, making Inoichi to tense up. Guys. Ino began. We knew that the moment you saw your father, you'd want to face him, Shikamaru began. But that doesn't mean you have to do it alone. Yeah, Inoichi-san was like family for us too, Choji added. It's good to see that you're alive as well, Inoichi said, his face looking relieved. But where is Choza? Please don't tell me that Choza is fine, Shikaku was quick to answer. He's not with us, as he was chosen to be part of a group for a special mission. Inoichi sighed again. Thank goodness I was the only casualty among our families that day, he said. Then, his expression went from relieved to panicked, as his body tensed up. Guys, watch out, I'm going to attack. Mind evisceration jutsu. The 3 teens and 1 adult opposing Inoichi all fell to their knees while clutching their heads in pain when their brains felt like they were being cut with a burning knife. Their enemies incapacitated, Inoichi pulled a kunai and rushed forward. You'll need something better than that to put me down, old friend, Shikaku said, as he struggled against the searing pain coursing through his head, and formed a single hand seal. Shadow imitation jutsu. Shikaku's shadow darkened before it stretched and rocketed towards the incoming Inoichi, who gracefully sidestepped it without stopping his charge forward. The shadow split into smaller threads, forcing Inoichi to jump back a bit, but he made evident he wasn't going to stop. Struggling against the mental pain, Ino reached for her ninja tool pouch and grabbed a smoke bomb. After her battle with Sai, she decided to carry at least a dozen with her before a mission and tossed it at her father's feet, filling the area in a dense cloud of purple smoke. Inoichi's body decided it was for the best not to attack blind. Good, that bought us some time, Ino thought, as she started making hand seals. Guys, let me enter your mind's so I can connect them to mine. Mind fragmentation jutsu. Fragments of Ino's mind left her and entered her teammates and Shikaku. She could now see and hear what they saw and heard, and their minds were now linked together, allowing them to share their thoughts without the enemy knowing. Good job, Ino, Shikamaru said. I know that Yamanakas can create mental shields to protect yourselves from enemy psychic attacks. Can you do that with us? I can, but since you only have a tiny piece of my mind inside your head, it won't be as effective as a full shield, Ino replied. It will be better than nothing, Ino, Shikaku said. Shikamaru, you and I will focus on immobilizing him. Ino, make sure to counter his psychic jutsu with yours. Choji, you will be the one to squash him once we incapacitate him. Understood? Yes sir, the Ino Shikacho team chorused in unison. Come on Shikamaru, the Nara patriarch said, as he and Shikamaru made the same hand seal. Shadow imitation jutsu. This time, 2 shadowy tendrils rocketed out of their shadows towards Inoichi. The undead Yamanaka had no choice but to fall back, lest him be trapped. Ino saw the perfect chance to strike. Alright then, my turn, Ino said, as her hands made 4 hand seals as quickly as she could. Mind clone switch jutsu. Cloning her mind several times, she transferred them towards several white Zetsu clones near them, and immediately directed them towards her father. The 2 Naras noticed what Ino was doing, and they directed their shadows in order to force Inoichi into Ino's trap, and indeed, the possessed white Zetsu tackled the reanimation into the ground. Great work, guys, Shikaku said. Choji, now. Partial multi-size jutsu. Choji made a hand seal as his arms grew in size. He brought both arms up, ready for a downward smash. I'm sorry Inoichi-san. However, before Choji could smash the former Yamanaka clan head, several chakra threads shot from seemingly nowhere, attached themselves to the white Zetsu, and pulled them from Inoichi. The undead Yamanaka rolled to the side just before Choji smashed his enlarged fists into the ground, opening a crater. What? Shikamaru asked. Inoichi made a hand seal, and thrust his hands towards the defenseless Choji. Mind disturbance jutsu. Af. Choji yelped, as his body started to twitch. My body. I can't control it. That moment, a redhead garbed in Akatsuki cloak landed near them, chakra threads attached to his fingers. After dispelling the threads, he pulled out a scroll from under his robe and unsealed two ordinary-looking human-shaped puppets from it. That was a nice tactic you were doing there. Pity I had to crash it, the puppeteer said. Given his blackened eyes and cracked skin, was a reanimation as well. Wait, who the hell is this guy? Ino asked. He's wearing an Akatsuki cloak, and he's using puppets. He must be Sasori. We got word that Orochimaru revived Kakuzu. No wonder he also did the same with other Akatsuki members, Shikamaru said, gritting his teeth in anger. Ah, so you know of me, Sasori said, his tone being calm. Too bad I don't have my best works of art here to show you. Instead, all I have are these pitiful outdated contraptions. I couldn't give a crap about your part. You nearly murdered my girlfriend, and you're going to pay for it. Shikamaru said. I murdered many people, yet you're angry for one of the few I failed to kill, Sasori said, and chuckled as if somehow that twist of logic amused him. And you will join them soon enough. I'm sorry, Choji, Inoichi said, as he commanded Choji to attack Shikamaru. Shadow imitation jutsu. However, before Choji could get close to Shikamaru, his father intervened, using the clan's signature ability to root him in place. Ino, try to relieve Choji from the mind control. I'm on it. Ino replied. No, you won't, Sasori calmly said, as he directed his puppets towards her. One of the puppets grew several baldies around its arms and body, while the other opened up multiple slots across its body that fired kunai and shuriken, more than likely poisoned, towards the blonde Yamanaka. Ino, don't let those weapons touch you. They're coated in a deadly poison. Remember Kankuro and Temari. Shikamaru urgently reminded her, as he moved to assist her. Ah, the fourth Kazakage's other two kids, which somehow managed to survive my poison, Sasori said, sounding a little ashamed. I guess the girl was the girlfriend you talked about. Oh well, it's irrelevant. Given that you didn't expect to see me, I deduce you won't have an antidote for my poison. All the better then. While Sasori kept Shikamaru and Ino busy, Inoichi took his chance and ran away from the fight, much to Shikaku's surprise. Knowing that Inoichi could keep Choji under control while he ran away, the Nara clan had tentatively released his jutsu, freeing Choji, who felt that his body was under his control once again. Choji, are you okay? Shikaku asked. Yeah. My body is my own again, and I don't think he left anything in my mind either, Choji replied. Though, why did Inoichi leave? With me busy keeping you immobilized, it was the perfect chance to strike me down, Shikaku said, worried. What did fire release? Great fireball jutsu. Suddenly, Shikaku and Choji found themselves about to be engulfed by a massive fireball coming from above. Shikaku was able to push Choji away while jumping to the side, allowing the two of them to dodge the initial explosion. Still, they were close enough to it to be caught in the shockwave, which sent the two of them flying in opposite directions, before landing on the ground with a painful thud. Dad! Choji! Shikamaru screamed after noticing what just happened. You don't have time to worry about others, brat, Sasori said, as he made one of the puppets to shower him with poisoned kunai and senbon. Don't worry, son, I'm okay, Shikaku said, coughing as dust and ashes raised by the explosion got into his lungs. Hold on, I'm going to ACK. Dad! Shikaku looked down and saw the blade of a katana coming out of his chest, red with his own blood. He only had a few moments of consciousness before his eyes rolled into the back of his head as life left his body. The wielder of the katana pulled by kicking Shikaku's lifeless body forward, revealing the identity of the killer. It was Fugaku Uchiha. Lateral bolt of pain. Delivered a brutal horizontal chop to the nearest enemy who had the misfortune of facing him, this time, a moon puppet. The chop carried so much force that not only was the puppet instantly split in two, but said halves burst into many pieces of metal and plastic, which were spread across the grassy ground, joining the many, many pieces of white Zetsu flesh and more puppet remains that fought the wreckage. A had separated himself a little from the thick of the battle, since he needed a lot of space to move and his attacks caused widespread destruction and didn't want any of his ninjas under his command to end as collateral damage. Several reanimations tried their luck against him, with the same results. Despite being strong ninjas, though the wreckage didn't recognize most of them, with powerful bloodline limits, A's combination of unbeatable speed and sheer strength proved to be too much for them, and found themselves overwhelmed. Though, the wreckage was about to face an enemy that would prove to be more than a match for him. Shinra Tensei. One moment, A was dispatching a white Zetsu brute, and the next one he found himself flying and crashing against a tree, which was snapped in two due to the sheer force of the impact. Still, the first division commander appeared to be completely unharmed. What the hell was that? The wreckage roared, his nostrils flaring and teeth gritting with anger of being caught off guard like that. Show yourself, coward. The answer came in the form of several whistles. Looking up, A saw multiple missiles flying towards him. The wreckage snorted dismissively, and with his phenomenal speed, dodging them was child's play. And by following the direction the missiles came from, A finally found his ambusher, a red-headed man with an Akatsuki cloak. Though what stood out from that man were his eyes, purple with concentrical rings. That washed away every doubt about his identity. So, you're the one called Pain, right? Akatsuki's former leader, I said, locking eyes with the reanimation. Of course Orochimaru would bring you back to life. That's a name I used to wear, but not anymore. I prefer if you referred to me with my actual name, Nagato, Nagato said, before tilting his head. Though if you know about me, then you should fall back and come back with reinforcements. I saw you fight and you have power and skill, but not enough to overcome the power of the Rinnegan. In less than a second, the wreckage was behind him, ready to split him in two with a vertical chop with a hand coated in lightning. Don't underestimate me. Shinra Tensei. Before the wreckage could touch the reanimation, he was violently thrown back. This time, though, he was able to land on his feet, break his momentum, and dash towards Nagato again. I know how the Rinnegan works. That jutsu is powerful, but he needs to wait 5 seconds to use it again, the wreckage thought, as he blitzed towards the undead Akatsuki. And with my speed, I can kill you 10 times in a row. Indeed, Nagato was unable to dodge or even block the wreckage's brutal fist aimed towards his face. However, the redhead merely disappeared in a burst of smoke, leaving a log behind, which was instantly shattered to splinters. A replacement, the wreckage snarled as he looked around. A man of your power needs to use such a jutsu to beat me. The earth started to rumble, as nearby trees were toppled down as something big rushed through the forest. Said something turned out to be a gigantic ox and an equally large rhino, both of them with Rinnegan eyes and black rods on their bodies. Impressive monsters, the wreckage calmly said, as he prepared for the assault. The rhino managed to reach first, and lowered its head in order to gore the wreckage with its massive horn. However, A managed to catch the beast's horn expertly, and while he was pushed backwards, he managed to root himself in place by digging his feet into the ground, stopping the giant animal on its tracks. You're going to need something more than big dumb animals to put me down. The wreckage roared, his chakra cloak flaring bright, as he lifted the rhino and used it to bludgeon the giant ox. The strike wasn't hard enough to cancel the summon in one go, but I was sure it would be enough to leave them out of commission for a while. Dansho Tenin. The wreckage was once again sent flying backwards, though this time he felt as if he was being pulled towards something rather than being pushed away. He braced for the impact, but much to his surprise, his flight was stopped not when he crashed into something, but when a giant lobster claw caught him, pinning his arms to his body. How many of these animals do you dash? The wreckage was about to ask, when he felt a hand placed on his head. Psychic mind transmission. The wreckage felt how a foreign presence tried to pierce his mind. He tried to expel it, but despite his mental fortitude and unbreakable willpower, the intruder was far too skilled in the arts of psychic ninjutsu, and entered his mind. Suddenly, the Raikage was forced to relieve several memories as the enemy scanned his mind, until he found what he was looking for. A memory where the Raikage was talking with his brother, Darui, Mabui, and other high-ranked Kumo ninjas about the decision to send B and the other two Jinchuriki to Genba the Turtle Island for protection and training. His blood froze upon realizing that such information was now in the hands of the enemy. No! Fueled by both anger at his enemies and fear for his brother's life, his lightning chakra cloak exploded with power, pushing the Yamanaka away and forcing the giant crustacean's claw open. When the sea creature lowered its claw again, the Raikage grabbed each end of the claw, lifted it above his head, and using his rage to fuel his strength, tossed it against the edge of the forest, toppling several trees in the process. "I'm sorry," voice said behind him. The Raikage turned around, and saw a blond man with blonde hair styled in a ponytail, wearing the standard Konoha uniform. His blackened eyes and cracked skin betrayed his identity as a reanimation. "You," the Raikage seethed. "Just what did you do?" "Orochimaru forced me to scan your mind. He was linked to me as I did it," the man replied. "He now knows where the Jinchuriki are hiding." "I'm sorry, I have no control over my dash." In less than a second, the Raikage crossed the distance separating them, and with a powerful punch, disintegrated the man's head. A second later, his lifeless body fell on his back. Still, the Raikage knew that he would be back in a few minutes. "Mountain Graveyard, Kukuku, I know where the Jinchuriki are hidden," Orochimaru said out loud in a taunting manner. Obito, who was lazily resting against a rock wall with his eyes closed upon that moment, snapped his eyes opened, and almost jumped upon hearing those words. "What? Where are they?" Obito demanded, as he stomped towards where Orochimaru was sitting. "Speak." "Calm down, Obito-kun. I don't know the exact location, but I obtained a pretty good hint," Orochimaru said. "Apparently, Kumogakure has a base built on an island that's not an island, but a giant turtle. That's where the Jinchuriki are being hidden." "Clever. Very clever," Obito admitted. "Kami knows how long it would have taken us to find such a place. Said turtle moves to a different location every day, meaning that even if you find it, it will be on a different spot the next time," Orochimaru warned him. "I can take care of that," Obito said, snapping his fingers. Zetsu, the original, emerged from under the ground. "You called, boss?" the white half asked. "According to new intel, the Jinchuriki are hidden on a mobile island. Said island has to be somewhere in the seas to the east and west of the Land of Lightning," Obito explained. "Tell the flying Zetsu to explore that area." "It will be done, boss," the black half replied, as it sunk back into the ground. "Good work, Orochimaru," Obito said, albeit begrudgingly. "Regardless of the outcome of this battle, you provided Akatsuki with a decisive victory." Orochimaru smirked sadistically. "Oh, I can make our victory even greater. Now watch." Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji stared at the undead Uchiha, who stared back at them with lifeless black eyes. At his feet was the equally lifeless body of Shikaku Nara. Tears streamed from Shikamaru's eyes, his teeth grinding against each other. Ino couldn't suppress her tears either, and covered her mouth with a hand. Choji's eyes were open wide and his mouth left agape, as if still processing what just happened. "I'm sorry for that," Fugaku dryly said, before he raised his katana in a menacing way. "Now, unless the three of you are strong enough to take down a Jonin, I'd suggest you to fall back and find reinforcements. Despite my best efforts, I can't control my actions." "That won't be necessary," a new voice said. The Ino Shikacho trio was snapped out of their stupor when their sensei landed in front of them and raised a chakra blade protectively. "Asuma-sensei," Ino stammered. "Asuma-sensei," Shikamaru's dad Choji began, but Asuma raised a hand to silence him. "I know. I sensed his chakra vanish all of a sudden. That's why I came here as fast as I could," Asuma said, his now golden eyes looking at Shikaku's deceased form. I may not be able to save him, but I'll be able to save the three of you, Asuma said, before pointing one of trenched knives at Fugaku. My name's Asuma Sarutobi, and I shall be your opponent. I have no choice in who I get to fight. But my body is compelled to kill the strongest enemies first. If you're as strong as you appear, you may convince the one controlling me that I should focus on you and ignore the kids, Fugaku said. I can assure you you'll find me a challenging opponent, Asuma insisted. Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, I can't fight an opponent this strong and protect you at the same time. Get away from here and try to fight an enemy more suited to your power and skill. Don't worry about me, I'll be okay. Shikamaru didn't say anything, he just wiped his tears and nodded. He turned back and ran away, with Ino and Choji trailing behind him, much to Asuma's relief. He didn't have time for an argument now. Though his relief was short-lived, as he saw Fugaku's hands blurring through hand seals. Fire release, Great Fireball Jutsu. Fugaku exhaled a massive fireball, which flew towards Asuma, leaving a path of scorched grass and ground on its wake. Asuma channeled more chakra towards his trenched knives, the blades of chakra they were projecting growing longer, thicker and shining brighter, as he ride them above his head. Sage Art, Blade of the Wind God. Asuma brought down both weapons, slamming them into the ground, releasing two crescent-shaped vertical chakra blasts that traveled forward, carving two furrows into the ground as they moved. They cut the giant fireball coming at the leader of the tactical squad, splitting it in two, before the wind around the chakra crescents put the fire away. Incredible. Despite my jutsu's power in having the elemental advantage, Asuma's attack Fugaku said, before his enemy suddenly appeared before him, trenched knife raised above his head, ready to deliver a vertical slash. Time seemed to slow down, and Fugaku's Sharingan analyzed the blade of pure white and blue chakra slowly descending upon him. He could tell that parrying with his own katana, even channeling fire chakra to counter Asuma's wind, would be useless, as Asuma's chakra blade would overwhelm any defense he might put up. What's with that kind of chakra? Fugaku thought, as he started to move aside. His chakra is far more potent than any human, and the color of his eyes and the red marks around them, what kind of power is this? Time started to flow normally again, and Fugaku was able to dodge Asuma's brutal vertical swipe. It released yet another crescent of chakra that carved another furrow, as well as raising a powerful gale force winds in every direction. It's Sage Mode, Fugaku-san, a creepy, unnerving voice said in his head. Fugaku recognized it as the man who had brought him back from the dead. Orochimaru? You know about that? Yes. Sage Mode is an extremely rare art. Only the most powerful ninjas are able to master it, and even then, you need to sign a contract with an animal tribe willing to teach it to you, Orochimaru said. I wasn't expecting somebody like Asuma to be able to learn such a mode. Then his chances of beating me are high. Good. I already died being the unwitting puppet of a manipulator. I don't plan to continue being another puppet in death, Fugaku mentally replied. Orochimaru chuckled. And what makes you think you have a choice, my dear Uchiha? Now continue fighting. I want to see how the abilities of the Mangekyo Sharingan measure up against the unexpected power of Asuma's Senjutsu. That very moment, Fugaku's Sharingan changed into his Mangekyo form, and made a single hand seal. Okinanushi. Fugaku's body released a wave of chakra in a single burst, and the air around him looked distorted, as if Fugaku wasn't part of this plane of reality. Asuma, who was on the offensive, jumped backwards while raising a chakra blade in a defensive fashion. Interesting. It seems as if you know already what this jutsu does, Fugaku observed. Because I do. I didn't see it with my own eyes, but I spoke with somebody who did, Asuma explained. If that's the case, then somebody must have pillaged my eyes and used them for their own benefit, Fugaku said, before a scowl developed on his face. It was Danzo, wasn't it? Yes, it was him, Asuma confirmed. The Sarutobi Jonin could feel Fugaku's anger spiking, and decided that soothing him might be for the best. Still, Danzo is no longer among the living. Mato Gai and Shisui Uchiha put him down. Shisui? Is he still alive? Fugaku asked. Wait, what about other Uchihas? Please tell me some of them survived the insurrection. Aside from Shisui, only your son survived, Asuma explained. After your death, the rest of your clanmates decided they wanted to follow you to the grave and go down fighting, rather than face Konoha's judgment for their actions. Even if reduced to a fraction of what we used to be, it's good to hear that the Uchiha still lives, Fugaku said. They aren't the only ones. Shisui is a father of 2 children. It may take generations, but the Uchiha will reclaim their former glory, Asuma said, before his stare hardened. And thankfully, their leadership won't lose their way like it did under you. I know. I'm sorry for killing your father. I'm also sorry for killing Shikaku Nara, even if it wasn't my intention, Fugaku said sorrowfully. You were close, but my father still lives, Asuma said, much to Fugaku's surprise. And now, I shall put you down for good, so no more lives are endangered by you again. Asuma dashed forward, while Fugaku jumped backwards, leaving a trail of 4 negative-colored afterimages that mimicked his movements. The former Uchiha clan head pulled several shuriken and tossed them at the Sarutobi sage, and his afterimages did the same. Asuma delivered an horizontal chop in opposite directions with his chakra baldies, creating an X-shaped blast of wind chakra that traveled forward, blowing away all the shuriken. However, more shuriken came after those, and even more after those. Fugaku and his afterimages unleashed a storm of metal that was able not only of slowing Asuma's attack down, but to stop it completely. What the? Asuma asked, surprised, as he jumped back from the incoming rain of steel stars, as he made more hand seals. Fire release, Great Flame Jutsu. This time, Asuma expelled a huge cone of flames, burning so hot, the shuriken melted into puddles of liquid metal in mere seconds, and expanded in width as it moved towards Fugaku. The former Uchiha clan had tried to move to the side, but was unable to dodge the incoming firestorm, and he was engulfed by a sea of blazing red and orange. Even if he's immortal, that fire should be enough to put him down so he can be sealed away before he regenerates, Asuma said to himself, as he watched the flames in front of him quickly disappear. His eyes also returned to normal as Sage Mode vanished. And good thing, because I used the last of the Senjutsu chakra I gathered before on that attack. Sure, he still had a shadow clone hidden among the trees gathering nature energy, but he wanted to save that for an enemy of similar caliber. However, when the flames died out, rather than a charred body in the process of regenerating, he saw that Fugaku was very much untouched. Around him was a giant ghostly ribcage, black with red edges, and some fire around it that quickly disappeared. Susanoo. Of course, I should have expected that, Asuma said, scowling in frustration. You know this jutsu as well, Fugaku observed. I presume you saw Itachi or Shisui using it. Sasuke as well, Asuma added. Fugaku was a little taken aback, but made no comments on that detail about his youngest son. Then, Fugaku's Susanoo skeleton continued developing, growing arms, shoulders, a neck and a head, followed by muscle, and then skin. Lastly, 2 black swords appeared on each hand of the construct. The Sarutobi Jonin seethed as he made a single hand seal. The shadow clone gathering nature energy was dispelled, said energy transferring to Asuma, restoring his sage mode. This is going to be harder than I believed. But I didn't get where I am now by throwing the towel in the face of a challenge, Asuma said, as he channeled chakra through his trench knives, generating 2 chakra baldies through them. Let's go. Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino had tried to flee and find a more suitable opponent like Asuma had commanded them. Unfortunately, they were intercepted by Sasori, who decided that they would be his next victims. They'd been trying to escape from him, but whenever they moved away, one of Sasori's puppets rained poison Kwani and Sanbon on them, forcing them to remain in place. Doesn't those things ever run out of ammo? Choji asked, as he ran away as fast as he could from the deadly metal shower, followed by Ino. Even the lesser of my creations are still deadly weapons. Do not underestimate my art, Sasori said, sounding somewhat annoyed. While one of the puppets continued to rain poisoned weapons on the two Konoha Chunin, the other one generated blades around its arms and dashed towards Shikamaru. The Nara, however, was unfazed. Shadow Sewing Jutsu, Shadow Cocoon. Multiple shadowy threads formed around Shikamaru and wrapped around him, forming a protective shell just in time to block the strike from the incoming puppet. There was a metallic clang upon impact, but the shadow shield didn't break. At least, until Shikamaru commanded it to. Shadow Sewing Jutsu. The protective cocoon broke apart again into multiple dark tendrils, which wrapped themselves around the puppet's arms and legs, trapping it. Now, time to break this thing. Shikamaru shouted, as he made a hand seal and used his anger to empower his chakra. The shadowy thread started to apply pressure, and a few cracks could be heard from within the puppet. I won't let you, Sasori said in his bored monotone. Shikamaru looked at the undead redhead, but didn't see him doing anything. That's it, until he noticed something on his shin. Looking down, he saw a chakra thread attached to it. Sasori then moved a finger with the thread attached to it, and Shikamaru's leg was pulled with deceptively strong force, making him fall on his back, while Sasori pulled his now free puppet back. Not that I care that much for these oldies, but it's the best I have now. Then again, Sasori said, as he looked around. There are so many skilled ninjas here, many of them with bloodline limits. Yes, I can start a new collection with all the bodies that will be left once this battle is over. Shikamaru. Ino shouted, as she and Choji rushed to help his friend, but another rain of poisoned metal stopped her from doing so. Sorry, but no interruptions. That was your father there, wasn't he? Sasori asked, his eyes locked onto Shikamaru. I also know the pain of losing a parent to enemy ninjas, though in my case, they didn't die before my very eyes. You must feel horrible. But fear not, soon you'll be free of your misery and will be able to reunite with your dad. With a hand wave, Sasori directed his puppet to finish the now helpless Shikamaru. However, all of a sudden, the air was filled with the sound of cracking electricity. A white, blue and red blur crossed the space between Sasori and his enemies, followed by the sound of ropes being snapped, and then Sasori's puppets fell to the ground motionlessly. What the? Sasori asked, as the chakra threads on his fingers dispelled. Somebody cut the threads? Shikamaru felt a pair of hands grabbing him by his shoulders and helping him back on his feet. He saw that Omoy and T were the ones helping him up. In front of him was Karui, smirking at him. Hey man, you okay? Omoy asked. I've been better, but yeah. That was a nice save, Shikamaru complimented. Karui smirked in satisfaction. You're welcome. You're lucky we noticed you guys were in trouble. Because you were constantly checking on Choji, T jabbed. We're in the middle of a battle, leave the goddamn teasing for when we win, the redhead angrily yelled at her teammate. Yeah, I like to tease Karui as much as you, but she has a point, Omoy agreed. Karui. Choji yelled as he ran towards the group. You saved Shikamaru. I know, I'm great, she said with a nod, and suddenly pulled out several shuriken from her ninja tool pouch, and tossed them towards Sasori. The redhead was trying to reattach his chakra threads to the puppets, but Karui's shuriken intercepted them before he could do so. Trying to recover your toys while we're talking, huh? Not on my watch. T, you know what to do, Omoy said. T nodded, put herself behind Shikamaru, and started to make hand seals. Shikamaru immediately realized what she was doing, and crouched down and made a hand seal of his own. Lightning release, lightning flash. T's body exploded with bright white light. Those unfortunate to look at her in that moment, like Sasori, felt like a lightning bolt just fell in front of their very eyes, and instinctively raised his hand to shield his eyes. But just for once, T wasn't using that jutsu to blind her opponent. The bright light, however, had the added effect of greatly expanding Shikamaru's shadow for a few seconds. A few seconds was all what the Nara needed, shadow imitation jutsu. With a speed never seen before, Shikamaru's shadow stretched and rocketed forward, touching Sasori's shadow, leaving the undead puppeteer completely immobilized. "This guy won't go anywhere," Shikamaru said. "Good. T, put some chakra suppressing seals and restriction seals on him before somebody else tries to free him," Karui commanded. "Understood," the twin-braided Kunoichi said, as she moved towards the incapacitated Akatsuki. "Okay, now that we dealt with that creep, I'd like if we went after my dad. He's pretty dangerous, and I feel only I can counter his jutsu," Ino began. She was about to say something more, when suddenly the ground started to shake under her feet. What the dash? Shikamaru's heart skipped a beat, as he knew what was going to happen. "Everybody, move!" And indeed, the next few seconds, the ground cracked, before it violently exploded outwards, sending large chunks of earth and dirt flying everywhere, and naturally, the ninjas that were standing there not even a second ago, including Shikamaru and the others. And from under the recently formed giant crack, an equally gigantic black and red centipede appeared. "What the hell was that?" T asked, as she looked at the gigantic centipede charging towards a group of allied ninjas fighting Zetsu clones. "A summoned animal?" "Shikamaru. I saw that animal before," Choji said. "It was pain," Shikamaru interrupted. "Yes, that's one of his summons." "Pain? What pain?" Karui asked. Pain, or Nagato Uzumaki, as we later found, was the leader of Akatsuki, and a bearer of the Rinnegan, Shikamaru explained. Among his many powers, he could summon a wide variety of giant animals, much stronger than the usual summoned animals. He let out a weary sigh. Of course, it was obvious that Orochimaru would revive somebody of such power. So all the reanimations he sent after the other divisions weren't even his best. "It seems that he's been saving his heavy hitters all this time," Karui said in realization. "That's all nice and good, but you're forgetting about what's important," T cut in. "How do we defeat that guy? Because if he died before, that means that we can just kill him again. Or hurt him enough to seal him. So what did you guys do the first time?" "We didn't do anything. It was Naruto who took him down," Shikamaru replied. "And we can no longer count on him. Besides, Pain is way too much out of our league," Choji said. "Only somebody with the power of a Hokage is a match for a guy that powerful." "Thankfully, our Raikage is the leader of this division," Karui reminded, and his spirits quickly lifted. "Yes, Raikage-sama will make short work of that guy, Rinnegan or not. I don't know how strong the Raikage is, but I'm really hoping your faith in him isn't misplaced," Shikamaru said, sounding a little skeptic. "Though, is there something we can do to help?" Omoy asked, as his eyes darted towards the giant centipede. Then, there was another booming thunderclap, and saw more allied ninjas fighting against a giant lobster. "Damn, another one. Those animals are pretty strong, but they can be taken down with enough firepower," Shikamaru said. "Come on, let's go." "Watch out," Fugaku warned. Fugaku's Susanu's arm, which was holding a black blade with red edges, was brought down onto Asuma. The Sarutobi sage was tempted to parry the attack and check how did he hold against the Uchiha's power, but in the end he refused to take the risk. When the Susanu's sword hit the ground, it created a large crack that kept spreading in its general direction, shattering the ground in its wake. "Such destructive power," Asuma said in awe, clicking his tongue as he looked at Fugaku, encased inside the giant chakra construct. "Unstoppable offense and iron-hard defense. This is going to be a challenging one. To think that every Uchiha has this power buried inside their being," Fugaku commented, sounding amazed as well. "The Mangekyo Sharingan was known since the time of Madara Uchiha. How is that you only learned about it now?" Asuma asked. While the existence of the Mangekyo Sharingan was known, How to unlock it was not. Madara kept that knowledge to himself and took it to the grave, Fugaku explained. It was shortly before my death that I discovered the secret behind its activation. Asuma rushed forward, and Fugaku's Susanoo tried to slam him again. This time, Asuma moved aside, before leaping at his opponent, raising both chakra blades. The Susanoo lifted its other arm, generating a sword to parry Asuma's attack. Blades clashed against each other, but in the end, Asuma's ended up slicing through Fugaku's Susanoo's and struck the head of the chakra construct. However, the initial parry deprived his blow of much of its momentum and only managed to make a small crack on its head. Fire release, Great Fireball Jutsu. From within the Susanoo, Fugaku exhaled a huge fireball at Asuma, still clinging to the Susanoo's head, though he was able to jump away before the fiery attack could touch him. At the very least, I proved that I can overpower his defenses if necessary, though that alone won't be of any help, Asuma thought, his feet touching the ground, and Fugaku's fireball sailing into the sky. Though the fact that Fugaku can use ninjutsu while inside that thing is troubling, spikes started to grow all around the chakra construct. Asuma tensed up, and noticed that the spikes were all aimed at him. Susanoo, Tsukumo. The spikes fired off. Still, Asuma wasn't intimidated, and fast as lightning, started to swing his trench knives as fast as possible, deflecting the lethal needles aiming at him. He then noticed another spike of chakra coming from Fugaku, and realized he was making hand seals. He pulled out a handful of shuriken, and tossed them forward while exhaling fire into them, granting them an aura of fire. Trying to overwhelm me like that won't work. You still haven't seen the full extent of my abilities, Asuma said, as he prepared for the new barrage. Sage Art, Dual Elemental Release, Blades of Fire and Wind. The blue chakra blades Asuma's trench knives were projecting suddenly increased in length and thickness, while one of them burst into orange flames, and the other turned bluish-white. Asuma continued to deflect the Susanoo needles and the flaming shuriken, but now every swing released a crescent of wind or fire, many of them whom hit Fugaku's Susanoo. Said Susanoo moved forward, and tried to smash Asuma with one of its giant blades. This time, the Sarutobi clan member opted to parry the attack, crossing his blades above his head. The impact was powerful enough to sink his feet into the ground, but Asuma his senjutsu enhanced strength, Asuma spread his blades outwards in an arc, releasing a powerful crescent of wind and fire that shattered the Susanoo's blade. Asuma moved again. The Susanoo's other arm moved to intercept, albeit this time it appeared it was trying to grab him. As he moved, Asuma started to spin on his feet, turning into a deadly tornado of cutting wind and fire, and the other Susanoo arm was shattered as well. Yes. If I use the full extent of my power, I can neutralize his offense and overcome his defense, Asuma thought in triumph. Now time to end this. Asuma moved for the kill, and delivered a double thrust towards Fugaku's position. The elemental blades met with some resistance when they touched the Susanoo's shell, but this one too was shattered. The rest of the Susanoo vanished as Fugaku made a single hand seal. Okuninushi. Asuma felt a burst of chakra coming from Fugaku, and cursed inwardly as he jumped backwards, leaving a trail of negative afterimages. Asuma's blades pierced the solid afterimages, but doing so reduced his momentum, and he failed to reach the undead Uchiha. Shit. I was so close. Asuma cursed in anger. Yes, you were close. I didn't think there was something that could match, much less overcome, the mighty Susanoo in terms of power, Fugaku said, as the Susanoo formed around him again. However, you didn't see the whole extent of its power. That was merely the humanoid Susanoo. Here's the next stage, the armored Susanoo. The chakra construct grew in size, and gloves, vambraces, shoulder pads, a helmet and a chest plate formed around Fugaku's Susanoo, encasing it in armor. Then, a cowl covered its head, falling behind its back forming a cape. Finally, it raised a hand, generating a double-bladed katana. The Susanoo raised the double-bladed katana even higher, and started to spin it. The force of the spin was so great, it raised a small tornado around it. Once it built enough momentum, Fugaku tossed it forward. Susanoo, Helix. If I dodge that, it will continue forward, and Kami knows how many allied ninjas will die to that. I need to stop it. Asuma said, as beads of sweat ran down his temples. Channeling chakra into his arms, he delivered a swing with both his blades, hoping it would be enough to stop the attack. The black double katana was shattered by the impact, but it produced an explosion that hurled the Sarutobi clan member backwards, landing painfully on his back. And on top of the damage taken, Asuma felt how the last of the nature energy strengthening his body faded away. Shit, he cursed, as he tried to get back on his feet. Fugaku moved forward, and his dreadful Susanoo with him. And that isn't even the whole power of the Susanoo, Fugaku said. Orochimaru wanted me to test how my power did against that of a sage, and now that he has the answer, he doesn't need me to hold back. Now be prepared for the power of the perfect Susanoo. Ajirato. Nagato raised his arm, which reassembled itself as if it were a machine into a cannon. The barrel of said cannon started to glow with a white light as it gathered energy, before finally firing a bolt of chakra at the Raikage. The Raikage, however, proved that his moniker of fastest man alive wasn't an exaggeration when he was able to move fast enough to dodge the incoming bolt. More bolts were fired, but the Raikage, now barely a white and brown blur, dodged them easily as he zigzagged towards Nagato, leaving a trail of dust and blades of grass behind. Unfortunately, Nagato had something the Raikage speed was useless against. Shinra Tensei. Once again, he felt like gravity no longer affected his body a fraction of a second before an invisible force launched him backwards. Despite tumbling a few times, he was able to land on his feet, skidding back into the ground. Then, all of a sudden, the sidestepped and wrapped his arm around seemingly thin air. Huh. You think you can catch me off guard with such a pathetic trick? The air behind the Raikage rippled and shimmered, revealing a gigantic chameleon, with A's arms wrapped around the neck of the snake that was attached to its head. The snake hissed angrily, but the Raikage didn't budge. And showing once again that his muscles weren't just for show, the Raikage lifted the chameleon Ava's head before spinning around his feet, building up so much momentum, a small tornado began to form. This may be a problem, Nagato observed, taking a step back. You can have your repulsive pet back, the Raikage roared, before launching the gigantic reptile at Nagato. The undead redhead reflexively raised his other arm, and fired his most used and versatile jutsu. Shinra Tensei. The chameleon screeched as the force of the Raikage's throw clashed against the gravity blast of Nagato's attack, crushing the animal's body, resulting in its forced unsummoning, leaving a cloud of smoke behind. Said cloud was split in two the moment the Raikage blitzed towards Nagato again. 5 seconds before he can use that jutsu again, the Raikage thought, as they closed the distance between the two once again. But this time, make sure no other animal interferes there. A huge shadow blacked the sun, followed by a loud and high-pitched caw, and the Raikage jumped in time just to avoid a gigantic bird gore him with its large and deformed beak, landing on its head, before running through his body. Upon seeing that it had a leg sticking from its back, the Raikage smirked as an idea formed in his mind. That was a big mistake on your part. Said, as he grabbed the bird by the leg, and jumped towards Nagato, dragging the confused animal with him, before slamming it down on the redhead. Mistakes like that are easy to fix, Nagato said, making a hand seal. That moment, the bird was unsummoned, leaving the Raikage empty-handed, the sudden lack of the massive weight he was carrying fumbling his balance. Something Nagato took advantage of, as he jumped backwards while casting his hand forward. Bansho Tenin. Falling prey to the same feeling of weightlessness, this time the Raikage was pulled towards Nagato's hand, which wrapped around his throat, as another hand grabbed his head. I'm sorry. But you're already dead. Ninjendo. Nagato then moved the hand back, pulling the Raikage soul away from his body. Or that's what he would have done, if the Raikage didn't grab his wrist, leaving the large man's soul only partially out his body. The two of them struggled as if the soul was a rope in a tug-of-war competition. "Don't you dare underestimate me," the Raikage shouted, as he forced Nagato's hand to leave his soul into his body. "What the? How are you resisting this jutsu?" the stunned Nagato asked. The pressure on his wrist intensified, until it burst in a small cloud of dust and paper bits, causing the hand to fall to the ground live-sly, while the Raikage's soul fully returned to his body. Not giving Nagato another chance, the Raikage delivered a rather brutal kick to the redhead's chest, sending him flying backwards. Before he could press the attack, the Raikage was alerted by another giant shadow looming over him. He jumped away just in time before a giant bear claw smashed against the ground, opening a crater. The Raikage glared at the newcomer with a mix of frustration and anger. "Now a panda bear?" the Raikage asked in exasperation. "Just how many of these things can you summon?" The panda let out a roar as it stomped towards the Raikage, letting out a loud roar. The leader of Kimogakure was unfazed. Electric sparks loudly crackled around his body as he directed more chakra towards his lightning chakra cloak. Thundering elbow smash. In less than a second, the Raikage leaped at the panda and sank his left elbow into the giant bear's gut with all the strength he could muster, making the white and black plantigrade to tumble and fall on its back as if it was a chopped tree. Lightning combo, rapid fire series. A's fists were coated with electricity and started to deliver a series of extremely fast-paced punches towards his opponent. The panda's furry flesh felt soft at first, but suddenly it hardened into something that resembled iron, and the Raikage's lightning-enhanced punches were barely making a dent on it, something the man quickly noticed. Despite being lying on its back, the giant panda delivered another claw swipe at the Raikage, who jumped back before the slow-moving animal could reach it. Several whistles alerted him of danger, and looking up, he saw a multitude of missiles raining upon him. He remained still, letting the missiles fall around him, producing multiple blasts that engulfed him in a massive storm of fire. Said storm of fire was instantly dispelled as a surge of chakra burst outwards from the inside, revealing the very much unscathed Raikage. "I could have dodged that pathetic attack had I chose to. But I wanted to see the extent of your raw strength," the Raikage said, looking at how Nagato moving towards him. "And frankly, I'm not impressed. Then again, there's no ninja who has been able to pierce my lightning armor." "I see. Unfortunately for you, what you saw isn't the full extent of my abilities," Nagato said, as his hands started to form hand seals. I couldn't prepare for Nagato's attack, as the giant panda got back on its feet and tried to stomp the Raikage, forcing him to jump sideways. And it was that moment when Nagato unleashed his attack. Wind release, air bullets. Nagato expelled from his mouth several projectiles of compressed air at the Raikage. "He waited for me to be in the air so I couldn't dodge." Clever bastard, the Raikage thought, as he saw the air missiles coming at him, while trying to position his body in order to avoid as many of them as possible. "I must increase the power of my armor." Before his feet could touch the floor again, several air bullets hit the Raikage on his right forearm, right shoulder, and left side of the chest. Even if the armor greatly reduced the power of the attack, they still drew blood and made him feel pain. He did manage to dodge and outrun the rest of the projectiles once he could run again. As expected, if your chakra armor is based on lightning, then wind chakra can pierce it, Nagato observed. And very few people can match me when it comes to elemental ninjutsu. Not just the Rinnegan, but an affinity that beats mine, the Raikage growled, as he fixed Nagato with an angry stare. He also could hear the giant panda stomping towards him again. Then again, I didn't become Raikage by shying away from a challenging fight. The Raikage jumped just in time to avoid the bear's claw swipe, though rather than jumping away from him, the Raikage leaped towards it and performed a downward kick as he landed on the beast's head. "Let's get rid of you first." Guillotine drop. Slammed his foot onto the panda's head with such force, it made it drop into the ground headfirst. As he let gravity pull him towards the panda on the ground, the Raikage aimed his fists down and started to spin. Kimogakure Drilling Whirlwind. The panda had no time to harden its body, and the Raikage's brutal attack pierced its flesh and skin. Taking critical damage, the creature's summoning was undone, disappearing in a cloud of smoke. As the smoke dispelled, the Raikage pointed a finger at Nagato. "You're next, zombie," the Raikage said. "And don't think that just because you have wind affinity you have an advantage over me. My affinity isn't just wind, but all 5 elements." "That's one of the many gifts of the Rinnegan," Nagato said, as he started to make hand seals. "Earth Release, Swamp of the Underworld." Nagato slammed both hands into the ground, and suddenly the grassy terrain around them turned into a vast quagmire. The Raikage quickly started to sink, but Nagato remained at the top as if it was solid surface. "I recognize this jutsu, it's from Jiraiya," the Raikage said, as he struggled not to sink. "So it's true he taught you ninjutsu?" "Yes. Your biggest strength is speed, and this will make sure to curb that. For your sake, I hope you have something to counter this, because I don't want yet another innocent in my conscience," Nagato said in a sorrowful, almost pleading tone. The Raikage, however, took that as nothing but an insult. A vein in his forehead swelled in pure anger. "You think a little mud is enough to stop me?" A bellowed as his lightning armor burst outward with energy. "Think again." And much to Nagato's surprise, A lunged at Nagato, slower than before but still at a breaknecking speed, raising a wave of mud as he moved. Incredible, even with such a disadvantageous terrain, his speed is still something to behold, Nagato thought in awe. A chakra rod formed in his hand, as he prepared to endure the incoming clash. Nagato channeled wind chakra through said rod, and lifted it just in time to parry a brutal lightning-enhanced punch from the 1st Division commander. The rod broke, but it was able to absorb most of the punch's momentum. And it wouldn't be the last thing that was about to be absorbed. Nagato then placed his other hand on the Raikage's chest. Gakido. The Raikage could feel how his chakra was drained into Nagato, as the lightning armor that surrounded his body started to flicker and disappear. The Raikage mentally kicked himself for making such a mistake. Shit. His ability to absorb chakra. Since I'm a taijutsu specialist, I didn't pay it much mind, but I should have realized he could have used it to absorb my lightning armor. Despite the mud reducing his mobility, A jumped backwards as he channeled even more chakra into his receding lightning armor, quickly restoring it to its peak strength. The Raikage prepared to attack again, this time reminding himself to be more careful of the chakra-absorbing ability. But before he could resume the battle, a violent tremor shook the entire battlefield. "What the?" The Raikage looked around, and immediately saw the source of the disturbance. A gigantic chakra construct, black in color with red edges, about 12 meters in height, of a heavily armored samurai whose face was covered by a mask with the appearance of a tengu. He was carrying a double-bladed katana that was holding with both hands. "What the hell is that?" "Susanoo," Nagato's voice replied. "An Uchiha's most powerful ability. I've never seen one before, only heard about it. Seeing one with my own eyes is breathtaking." The chakra construct raised his sword, before bringing it down in a descending arc, opening a huge crack in the ground, sending the unfortunate ninjas caught in the strike flying in all directions, and creating yet another tremor. Orochimaru was keeping such a powerful ninja under wraps, the Raikage asked, as he turned towards Nagato. "I see. He didn't want to show his best cards until we got comfortable with the war. Unfortunately, this isn't the worst Orochimaru has to offer. If you don't like the Susanoo, you're going to like this even less," Nagato said, as he raised a hand at the Raikage. The Kumogakure leader braced for whatever jutsu the undead redhead was about to unleash at him. But much to his surprise, Nagato raised his hand further, almost aiming into the sky. Chibaku Tensei. Water Release, Double Water Palm. Hikari thrust both hands forward, blasting her undead husband with a torrent of water. Hayashi countered it with a vacuum palm, but it was overpowered, and was hit by the powerful stream of water. His Byakugan noticed Hayazashi coming closer, but was in no position to do anything. Hizashi's chakra flared with power. 8 trigrams, 32 exploding strikes. 2 strikes. 4 strikes. Each one of Hizashi's palm hits was accompanied by a small chakra explosion that tore some of Hayashi's artificial flesh from his body. 8 strikes. 16 strikes. 32 strikes. When Hizashi was finished, Hayashi's body was smoking, missing several chunks of his arms, legs, torso, and even head. He limply fell on his back, as he felt the regeneration starting to kick in. But he knew, much to his relief, that he wouldn't regenerate in time before being sealed. And indeed, a couple of seal masters landed besides the Hyugas, and quickly went to seal the downed Hayashi. "Don't worry, brother, soon you shall return to your eternal rest," Hizashi solemnly said. "And return to the afterlife knowing that, while the night we lost you we also lost many clan members, the Hyuga clan is stronger than it has ever been." "That's all what I could have asked for," Hayashi said, as his body was wrapped in cloths. "I'm glad that you two and my daughters are doing good." With that, the seal masters took the cloth cocoon away, leaving the 2 Hyugas alone. Hizashi made a move to walk away, but Hikari remained frozen in place. The former leader of the branch house walked towards Hikari, and put a hand on her shoulder. "Hikari-san, I know better than anybody how must you feel now," Hizashi said emphatically. "But the battle is far from over. We can grieve over reopened wounds once we stand victorious." "Why yes. Sorry about that. Let's meet up with Dash." Hikari was interrupted when a tremor shook the battlefield. The 2 Hyuga immediately focused their Byakugan towards the source of the commotion, and immediately found it, a massive Susanoo armor. "Susanoo?" Hizashi asked. "Whose is that?" "Shursui went with Hinata-sama to the moon, and I'm sure Itachi and Sasuke weren't on this division. It's obvious that such Susanoo belongs to a reanimation. Other divisions reported of undead Uchihas," Hikari said, as he tried to piece the look of the caster. Unfortunately, the chakra of the Susanoo acted as a barrier for the Byakugan's enhanced vision. Plus, the color doesn't match with the Susanoo we know. It's massive. Much larger than the Susanoo of Itachi, Sasuke, or Shursui," Hizashi said, trying his best to hide his fear and uneasiness. "How are we going to fight that thing?" "I don't know," Hikari admitted. "I believe Tsunade-sama or Hanabi-chan wouldn't have any problem destroying that thing down. If we could only contact HQ and Dash." Once again, Hikari was interrupted by yet another tremor, except this time it wasn't the Susanoo the source of it. "Over there." Hizashi pointed into the sky. Hikari looked where Hizashi was pointing, and saw a massive amount of chakra concentrated into an extremely small point. She only saw something similar once before in her life. "Hikari-san, is that?" The answer in the form of large chunks of earth being ripped apart, trees uprooted from the ground, and rocks elevating into the sky and pulled into the almost invisible chakra orb. And not just that, but some allied ninjas and white Zetsu clones were pulled into the forming planetoid as well, screaming in horror as they were buried alive by tons of rocks. The fight ceased, and soon everybody was more worried about avoiding an horrible death than killing the enemies. Most of the Zetsu sunk underground in order to escape the powerful gravity pull, but the human ninja weren't so lucky. A feeling of overwhelming dread overcame the Hyuga matriarch, and scanned the entire battleground, trying to find somebody whose chakra matched the one from the gravity core. It didn't take her long to find the source of her worries, given that the chakra of the caster was so powerful, it was like a beacon in the night. She was greeted by the sight of the division commander, the Reikage, in the middle of a heated fight with a red-headed man wearing the Akatsuki cloak. But what drew her attention the most were the man's eyes, purple and with a ripple pattern. Despite the fact that she never saw such a man before, she knew his identity. "Pain, what the hell is that?" Karui screamed, as she tried to stay anchored to the ground through the tree-walking jutsu. But the gravitational pull was so strong, it was increasingly hard to do so. "Chibaku Tensei." One of Pain's most powerful jutsu. Choji explained. You saw this already? Omoi asked in shock. Pain used this attack when he and Akatsuki invaded Konoha. Choji replied. Once the moon forming about us is big enough, Pain will drop it onto our heads. Ino told Therm. That's why we need to run away from it. How the hell Konoha still exists after Pain used that jutsu above it? Karui asked in disbelief. Because they were able to counter it, right? T said, looking at Team Asuma with renewed but still fragile hope. What did you guys do to stop it? Tsunade-sama and Naruto destroyed it, Ino said. Unfortunately, we don't have any of them here with us right now. Karui looked up at the forming planetoid, and felt dread creeping through her body unimpeded. This kind of power was something not even her admired Raikage would be able to stand against. Upon seeing Nagato's jutsu in action, the Raikage launched at the undead redhead, overwhelming him with a barrage of lightning-fast punches and kicks. However, even if he was pushed into the defensive, Nagato was able to withstand his onslaught. The Raikage's desperation grew as he realized that, no matter how much he intensified his attack, the jutsu didn't stop. As it grew in size, it also gained more and more altitude. It eventually grew so big, it was able to block the sun like a man-made eclipse. Impressive, isn't it? You know, outside of training, I only used this jutsu once, to destroy Konoha when I attacked it, Nagato commented, though the lack of pride in his words was evident. Fortunately, they managed to stop it in time. And I will stop it as well. By stopping you, the Raikage bellowed, his lightning armor flaring bright. I wish you were able to. Like I said before, I killed many innocents in my misguided crusade for a better world, Nagato gloomily said. He then raised his hand, before motioning it down. And now, even in death, more victims will be added to my conscience. The Raikage turned around, and saw the planetoid falling down. Even if most ninjas had already moved from the zone where the giant mass of rock and earth was going to land, the resulting shockwave and destruction caused by the crash would cause untold amounts of death. And unlike what happened the last time, Nagato wouldn't bring the deceased back to life. I had the urge to run towards the falling asteroid, but the rational part of his mind told him that he would only get himself killed. So he was forced to watch impotent how it finally crashed down, resulting in a deafening booming sound followed by a storm of rocks, dirt, dust, and human bodies being flung in every direction. The resulting tremor could be felt from many kilometers away. Mountain graveyard leaning against a stone column, Obito watched how Orochimaru used a makeshift board and some kind of white pellets to direct his army of undead. The Sannin had been smiling and muttering something between laughs for quite some time. It unnerved the Uchiha, but at least it also gave him hopes that maybe this time the battle would go in a different way. That moment, Zetsu emerged from the ground. He, too, appeared to be pleased. Boss, the battle is ours. The enemy has suffered massive casualties, and the Raikage has ordered retreat, the white half explained. The reanimated Nagato proved to be quite an asset, the black half added. His Chibaku Tensei wiped quite the enemy ninja. Good to hear that, Obito said, nodding. About time your abominations managed to bring some results, Orochimaru. Orochimaru turned at him, and flashed a mocking grin at him. Yes. Now imagine what you would have done without my abominations. Do you think your pitiful army of white Zetsu would have accomplished anything on their own? Sir? What are your orders? The black half of Zetsu asked, hoping to stop the argument or fight between the two men before it could happen. The enemy is retreating. Should we chase them? Yes, Obito said, his eyes not leaving Orochimaru. Our forces must continue pursuit. I'm sure that the Alliance will send reinforcements, but that is of little consequence. How is the search of the Jinchuriki hideout going? Our aerial Zetsu have begun the search. The seas to the side of the Land of Lightning are vast, and storms are common over those areas. It might take a while, the white half replied. Even if we can't find their location, the news of one of their villages being destroyed will make them come out, Obito said. Return to the front and continue watching over the enemy. At once, boss. And Zetsu disappeared, leaving Obito and Orochimaru alone once again. Today was the day. After much scouting, investigating, and preparing, it was time for the Moon Assault Squad to, well, launch an assault on the moon. Tonari's base was somewhere inside the artificial sun. The moon puppets entered and exited through a hole that would appear on the surface when they made a certain hand seal. Shursui was able to copy said hand seal with his Sharingan, but when he tried to open a hole in the sun's surface, it had no effect. The Hyugas watching the hole being enclosed realized that only the puppets could open it, given that their chakra was somehow connected to that of the artificial sun. They also realized that, besides the patrols coming and going, if somebody got close to the sun, several moon puppets would fly out of the sun in order to meet the invaders. Fortunately, the Moon Squad knew how to use this to their advantage. Everybody, go. Hinata said. The Hyuga clan head was leading the aerial team, flying on her own. Behind them were the rest of the ninjas. The Moon Acolytes were left on one of the abandoned towns for their safety, were riding on Sai's ink birds, including the former root agent. While success of this part of the mission relied on Hinata, the rest of her team would have a role to play as well. Here they come. Takuma Hyuga warned, his Byakugan active. And indeed, that moment, a hole opened into the surface of the artificial sun, and moon puppets riding bird-like flying machines poured from it, ready to meet them in combat. Shursui-san, you ready? Indeed I am, Shursui replied. He was sharing an ink bird with a Hyuga, sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. When he opened his eyes, his normally black irises were yellow, and there were black marks shaped like wings around them. His yellow eyes then turned red of the Sharingan, before it morphed into its advanced form. Sage Art, Susanoo. Shursui leaped into the air as the green chakra construct quickly formed around him, reaching its perfect form, with black marks around its eyes to echo Shursui's. The Uchiha Patriarch made 2 shadow clones, who quickly sat cross-legged and closed their eyes, gathering nature energy and funneling towards the chakra construct in a constant manner. This should make sure I don't run out of senjutsu juice, Shursui said, nodding to himself, before cracking his knuckles, as he moved in front of Hinata. Alright, I'll try to draw their attention to me. Hinata, move towards the gate. The rest of you, provide us with cover. Yes, sir, the rest of the ninjas chorused in unison. The moon puppets gave them no pause, and rained over them a storm of golden chakra blasts. Sai's ink birds dodged and maneuvered around the deadly shots with the same grace and agility as actual birds, while its raiders fired jutsu of their own towards the defenders. However, the initial counter-barrage was only a bit of the things that were to come. Lightning release, thunder blast. Sage art, fire release blazing murder. Hinata extended her hands forward, releasing a myriad of blue-purple lightning bolts at the incoming enemies. Meanwhile, the wings of Shursui Susanoo covered its body, before quickly spreading them outwards, releasing a mass of ravens made of pure fire. The blazing birds flew towards the enemies, and burst into a fiery explosion upon making contact with them. All in all, those 2 attacks had cut the number of present enemies in half. Hinata, now. Shursui said, as he flew towards the remaining foes, while Hinata turned towards the artificial sun. The hole the moon puppets had opened was starting to close. As Hinata flew to it, she made several hand seals. Oh, no, you won't, she said, before making several hand seals. Tensigan Chakra Cloak. Truth-Seeking Balls. The Hyuga clan had created 4 truth-seeking balls, and sent them towards the closing hole. The 4 black spheres merged into a shapeless mass, which Hinata shaped into a large ring, large enough for somebody riding on a giant bird to pass. She placed that ring in the middle of the gaping hole, preventing it from closing. There, she said, nodding to herself. Everybody, quickly, get inside the sun. It's safe now. With Shursui providing cover, the rest of the Moon team quickly passed through the gate, followed by the Uchiha, and finally Hinata, who undid the black ring, taking back the form of 4 spheres. They were greeted by an image that was just as unreal as it was breathtaking. Several small islands floating completely still, around a gigantic stone structure shaped like a crescent moon with a planetoid inside its curve, perfectly mimicking the symbol of the Otsutsuki branch house. On top of the stone moon was a massive citadel, so large it almost looked like a city. I'm seeing an immense source of chakra coming from underneath that building, Hinata told them. That must be where the weapon is being stored. I see it too, and Hyuga Kunoichi said, her Byakugan active. Said chakra seems to be the same, the one powering the puppets and their machines. Do you think there's a link between them? More likely, it was Shursui who answered. Tonari's puppets have been inspected by both Konoha's best seal masters and Suna's ninja puppeteers, and neither of them were able to figure out how they worked, only that they received their energy from an external source, unlike the chakra golems. So if we destroy the Otsutsuki weapon, Tonari's puppet army will be shut down, Sai deduced. Good. That will make our friends work on Earth all the easier, Hinata said, as she and her group got closer to their target. However, the moment they got closer to the citadel, they were once welcomed by a barrage of golden chakra blasts. All around the citadel were turrets armed with double cannons manned by more moon puppets, focusing fire on them. On top of that, more puppets riding mechanical birds joined the fight, forcing the assaulters to turn back. We won't be able to get close to the citadel with so much fire upon us, Sai warned them. My ink birds can't resist such firepower, and will be vulnerable on the ground. Hinata-sama, all of our clan have witnesses the great power you possess now. Do you think you could destroy the whole citadel yourself? Takuma asked. I'll try. Even if I'm not able to destroy the whole citadel, I'm sure I'll at least destroy the defenses, Hinata said, as she extended her hand forward, and her truth-seeking ball started to spin in front of her hand, merging into a purple sphere. Amethyst will rain dash. Before Hinata could complete her attack, a black sphere, like a truth-seeking ball, but much bigger, appeared in the middle of the group, followed by a powerful telekinetic shockwave that blasted Sai's ink birds into black puddles, while hurling its riders away, all of them pummeling to the ground below around the citadel. Hinata's attack was interrupted, as the Hyuga clan head was violently hurled forward. Even Shursui Susanoo sent tumbling back. What was that? Hinata asked, as she regained her balance still mid-air. How did that thing got so close while evading my sight? The answer came in the form of the black sphere broke down into a black blob, revealing a hollow interior that held Tonari inside, his Tensigan chakra cloak blazing around him. Said blob then turned into 4 truth-seeking balls. He encased himself in a shell made of his truth-seeking balls. That's how he was able to evade my Tensigan, Hinata thought in realization. Tonari. How are you here? Hello, my princess. I was expecting you, Tonari said, her mouth curving into an inviting smile. You knew that I was coming? Hinata asked. But how? We've been evading all the patrols until now. Indeed, you and your little friends proved to be quite sneaky. And I couldn't afford to go and look for you myself, since I run into the risk of revealing my presence, since I could scare you into running away. But fortunately, everything has transpired according to my plan, Tonari explained. His smile was now of smug pride. As for how I knew of your presence, you should remember that you and your sister aren't the only ones linked by Himura's chakra. It took a second to Hinata to realize what Tonari meant, when the memory of Hanabi telepathically contacting her dawned her. That conversation I had with my sister. You listened to us. Not the whole conversation. I wasn't the intended target of the message, so I only got a few parts here and there. But I could discern that you were here, to put an end to the weapon my ancestors built in order to free themselves from the tyranny of the main house's oppression, while I was busy helping Obito with his little silly war, Tonari continued, shaking his head. I have to admit, that was careless of my part. Hinata's eyebrow arched at Tonari's last choice of words, striking her as odd. Little silly war. Don't you agree with him and his plans? Ah, yes, I know what you're implying, so I'm going to cut the chase and skip directly to the dramatic reveal, Tonari replied. Turns out you were right. My mind was being manipulated by Obito. I was his slave, and none the wiser about it. You broke the mind control? Hinata asked in shock. But I heard that Koto Emitsukami is nearly impossible to break. Naruto-kun had to be put on the verge of death to do that. I find insulting that you dare to compare me to that blonde oaf that you call your lover, but this should be even more proof over my superiority over him. Yes, I was nothing but Obito's thrall, but when Hamura's power developed and reached maturity, seeing the illusion and breaking through it was child's play. Tonari boasted. But then if you aren't mind-controlled anymore, then we don't have to fight anymore. Hinata said, beaming with joy. Tonari smiled. I'm glad to hear that. I do not wish to fight you either. Then will you help us stopping Akatsuki? Hinata asked, sounding hopeful. Tonari's smile turned into a condescending smirk. And why would I do such a thing? The Hyuga clan head was taken aback. What? But I don't understand. I might not be mind-controlled anymore, but I could see one truth of Obito's plan. The world the Sage of the Six Paths created is a failure. It is beyond saving. It must be destroyed, so something new, and better, can be built in its place, and the Ten Tails is the perfect tool for the job. Obito thinks that by stealing a Rinnegan, he will be able not just to control it, but becoming its Jinchuriki. Tonari shook his head, looking amused. Short-sighted fool. His body lacks the power to contain such power. It will consume him from the inside out the moment he tries to make that power his own. However, somebody who has the true power of the Six Paths, like me, can become its Jinchuriki without any risks. Once the Ten Tails is done reducing the world down to a more primordial state, I will absorb the beast into my body, and lead what's left of humanity to a new golden age. The power of the Ten Tails will make my rule unmatched, but such thing won't be necessary, since people will see me as the one who saved them from an unspeakable horror, and will follow my lead unquestioningly. And you, Hinata, he extended his hand, reaching her. You shall be my queen. You're compassionate, strong, and wise beyond your years. You're the perfect queen to rule the new world along just me. As Tonari spoke, Hinata's expression went from shock to horror, and finally setting in disappointment. This time, it was her who shook her head. I see. So even without the mind control nothing changed, she said, before staring at Tonari with eyes full of resolve. I'm no queen. The world needs no queens or kings, just people to fight for it. Like Naruto-kun, and the rest of my friends and family. Like me. And I will protect the world by defeating you once and for all. I see. So I have to tame you first before you accept your fate. It's okay, I have already foresaw this, Tonari said. Unlike our previous confrontations, I'm the one with the home field advantage, and you have no place to run away, nor allies to call for help, except those few that came with you. You're always so sure of yourself. Well, you'll see that the people I brought with me are more than enough to deal with you. Hinata said, as her 4 truth-seeking balls moved in front of her, and merged into a protective shield. Susanoo, fire release meltdown. Tonari turned around, and saw Shisui Susanoo floating above him, exhaling a massive, constantly expanding fireball that threatened to engulf Tonari. However, the last Otsutsuki wasn't surprised, and raised his hand at the incoming attack. His 4th truth-seeking balls merged into a golden orb, before exploding, releasing its energy in the shape of a golden beam aimed at the incoming attack. The chakra beam and growing inferno clashed against each other, resulting in an explosion that pushed both Uchiha and Otsutsuki backwards. Hinata, I'll deal with this asshole. You go find and destroy the weapon. Shisui yelled. Understood. Hinata said, as she quickly flew towards the citadel's main entrance. I won't let you, Toneri said, as he flew to intercept her, but was forced to fall back when a gigantic drill-shaped spear almost smashed into him. And I won't let you, Shursui said, looking at the white-haired man from above. He then turned towards Sai, Takuma, and the rest of their team, fighting moon puppets while avoiding the fire coming from the citadel's turrets. Everybody, follow Hinata and make sure she reaches the weapon unimpeded. Shursui was answered by chorus of "Yes sir" and similar responses, before his Sharingan focused on Toneri. You seem to be very eager to fight against teens and little kids. Let's see how well you do against an actual adult, Shursui said, as his eyes narrowed in anger. I still owe you a big one for nearly killing my wife's little brother. Shursui Susanoo dived down, ready to skewer Toneri with his drill lance again. Toneri waved a hand, and sent a truth-seeking ball to intercept the coming spear, taking the shape of a small shield. However, Shursue's spear cracked it, shattering it into hundreds of small black shards, before coming down, barely missing Toneri, who flew backwards. So, you're able to overwhelm my truth-seeking balls. First that annoying kid, then that boorish blonde, and now you. Toneri said, unamused, as he resummoned the orb that had been destroyed. His Tensigen flashed for a second, as he fixed Shursui a hard stare. Your chakra is definitely different than that of a normal human. And similar to that kid in Naruto. I can see that your clones are absorbing pieces of ambient chakra and channeling it towards the armored construct. I was unaware such thing could be done. Perhaps that's what allows you to bypass my defense. Very clever. But that knowledge will do you no good, Shursui said, as he charged once again. Without your precious truth-seeking balls, you're helpless against a sage. Toneri smirked, as he raised his hand at Shursui. Oh, I beg to differ. Silver will reincarnation explosion. Toneri's 4 black orbs merged into a silvery sphere, exploding into a typhoon that swallowed Shursui Susanoo and violently hurled him upwards, until it crashed against the bottom of a floating island, producing several cracks on its rocky surface. Did you like that? Because I'm not done yet, Toneri said, smirking triumphantly, his hand still aiming at Shursui, as he summoned 4 more truth-seeking balls to replace the ones that had been consumed. The new ones also merged into a golden orb in front of his hand. Golden will reincarnation explosion. The golden orb once again exploded into an energy beam that flew towards Shursui. The Uchiha, however, managed to move the Susanoo out of the jutsu's trajectory and dodge at the last second. Shursui saw how the golden beam blasted the floating island into millions of tiny pieces or rock and pebbles. I can't believe Hagane survived that attack. Either that kid is much tougher than he looks, or Toneri grew more powerful since then, Shursui thought, worried. Even with Sage Mode, this guy beats me when it comes to raw power. I need to be smart, or I'll end up dead. Toneri quickly summoned more truth-seeking balls, and aimed his hand at Shursui. The balls started to spin around it once again. Oh shit, gotta get out of the way, Shursui thought, as he moved his Susanoo away before Toneri could fire another devastating attack. Emerald Reincarnation Explosion. This time, the black orbs didn't merge, but merely fired at Shursui, glowing bright green. The truth-seeking balls can't nullify my ninjutsu anymore, but the way they're glowing is giving me very bad vibes, Shursui noted, as he made a hand seal. Susanoo, Tsukumo. The green Susanoo flapped its wings once, releasing a barrage of large chakra needles of the same color. Then, much to the Uchiha's surprise, as if they had mind of their own, the truth-seeking balls started to move in order to avoid the storm of razor-sharp projectiles. 2 of the glowing emerald orbs were pierced by the needles, losing their momentum, but the other 2 reached Shursui, and embedded them into his Susanoo with great force, one of them close to the head, as they started to glow with a brighter light. I don't like that. Predictably, the orbs detonated, producing 2 large, green-colored explosions, taking a good chunk of the Susanoo's right side, including bits of its head. Still, it was good enough to remain floating mid-air. Impressive, Toneri said, as he flew towards him, summoning 4 more truth-seeking balls. That Susanoo is truly impressive. Then again, it's not invincible. In its current state, it won't survive more blasts. Emerald Reincarnation Explosion. The black orbs burned with an emerald light as they were charged with chakra, and flew towards Shursui. The Uchiha, however, wasn't going to lie down and take the attack like that. He started to make hand seals as the Susanoo thrust its drill spear forward, which started to spin, producing a vortex of wind. Susanoo, fire release blazing vortex. Shursui breathed a stream of fire into the drill spear, and when it combined with the wind vortex produced by the drill, it resulted in a roaring inferno that spread forward in a cone. The flames engulfed the coming truth-seeking balls, reducing them to ashes. The cone of fire continued forward, forcing Toneri to fall back. Now, before he creates more of those annoying orbs. Shursui said to himself, as he pulled out a Fuma Shuriken, and tossed it towards the last Otsutsuki. Shadow Shuriken Clone Jutsu. A couple dozen Fuma Shuriken formed around the original, carrying the same momentum, all of them flying towards the white-haired man. Shursui, however, wasn't done, and continued making hand seals. Fire release, Great Dragon Fire. Shursui breathed a second stream of fire at the flying steel stars, coating them in a cloak of flames. Even if Toneri didn't have time to summon more truth-seeking balls and use them as shields, they were far from the only weapon the last Otsutsuki possessed. He made a hand seal, and air shimmered for a second, before he cast a shockwave from his body that spread in every possible direction, repelling the burning discs before they could touch him. The attack evaded. Toneri resummoned his 4 truth-seeking balls again. A combination of skill and power. It seems that my beloved Hinata isn't the only prodigy hailing from that ninja village, Toneri complimented Shursui, smiling mockingly. Then again, you're a son of Indra, so your talent goes without saying. Violence and hatred flow through your veins. Just because I'm an Uchiha you think you already know me? Shursui growled, gritting his teeth. His Susanoo started to slowly regenerate as his anger empowered his chakra. You know nothing about me, my clan, or Earth as a whole. You spent most of your life here, watching us from afar. I did watch you, yes, but way closer than you think, Toneri said. I'm very much aware of your clan's history, up to the conflict that saw its numbers diminished to single digits. You and the other survivors might think you're better than your deceased clanmates, but in reality, you're only pretending to be different from them. Indra's hatred taints your very soul. It's your fate to create and perpetuate conflict. Do you know what is my fate as well? To wipe that odious grin from your face. Shursui said, as his Susanoo lunged at Toneri. You will try, Toneri said, making the same hand seal he did to create the shockwave. Then, the large rocks floating around them started to move towards Shursui as if they were meteors. Shursui's drill grinded them into gravel in a few seconds the moment they got close, but this also forced the Uchiha to slow down. Then, Toneri made 3 hand seals, and more meteors started to gather around him. I'm sure you'll find this familiar, Toneri said, as rocks started to gather above him, forming a large meteor. Pain was a man with a vision of a better world and the power to make that vision a reality. Somebody I respected. Hell, I might have agreed to continue being part of Akatsuki if he was still alive. But well, I'm digressing. Even if I only saw it from afar, I found his Chibaku Tensei magnificent. So consider this facsimile in homage to him. The white-haired man moved his hand downwards, sending the gigantic conglomeration of rocks towards Shursui. The Uchiha, however, was far from intimidated. You're going to find a much larger rock to crush me with, Shursui said, as he moved his Susanoo upwards, raising its drill lance. Susanoo, world-breaking drill. The drill spear started to spin again, this time with increased speed, as a vortex of chakra formed around it, making it appear much larger than it was. The moment the giant meteor was upon him, Shui thrust the drill upwards, grinding the rock into pebbles as soon as it touched it. Cracks started to spread around the meteor, breaking apart into multiple smaller stones by the ever-increasing rotation, until it was reduced to a few admittedly large but no longer threatening rocks. Huh. What about that? Shui boasted. I told you golden will reincarnation explosion. Shui saw too late that, while he was busy drilling the meteor, Tonari took advantage of that in order to prepare his most powerful move. Unable to dodge in time, the Uchiha had to watch how the golden beam of energy blasted his Susanoo, violently pushing it back to the vast courtyard surrounding the citadel, opening a crater upon crashing. Tonari smirked upon seeing Shursue's Susanoo slowly break apart into nothingness. The clones he was using to gather and funnel nature energy were of course gone as well. Still, it seemed that the green chakra construct absorbed most of the blast, sparing Shui any damage, as the Uchiha got back on his feet with relative ease. However, Tonari wasn't worried. He knew that Susanoo was the most powerful jutsu an Uchiha could use, and he defeated one that was powered by senjutsu to boot. Deprived of his best weapon, the Uchiha was easy pickings. So, I take you aren't going to surrender, are you? Tonari asked, as he descended, stopping a few meters from the ground level. You can bet your pale ass that I'm not, Shui defiantly said as he unsheathed his tanto from his back. Tonari chuckled. So stubborn. Don't you see that you can't beat me? Or do you plan to keep me busy as much as you can in order to buy Hinata the time she needs, even if you have to pay with your life? I can assure you I have no plans of leaving this place as anything other than alive. I have a lovely wife and kids I plan to return to, Shui said. I'm willing to die for my family, friends, and village, but on this case, it won't be necessary. Very well then. At the very least, you'll die with some dignity, Uchiha, Tonari said, smirking condescendingly at Shui. But you will die. Shui braced as 4 more truth-seeking balls appeared around him. Inside the citadel, lightning release, thunderbolt. Hinata extended her hands forward, purple electric sparks jumping between her fingers, before a lightning storm erupted from them, zapping the moon puppets that were mid-air leaping at them. The lightning bolts pushed them backwards while breaking them down to burn and broken pieces of plastic and metal. A few down, Hinata said, before spreading her arms outwards. Hundreds of them left. She released a telekinetic shockwave from each of her hands, hurling away more puppets that were going to jump at her. Before more enemies could jump at her, she dashed towards the door she thought it would lead her to the weapon before more puppets poured from said door, as well as from 3 other doors, much to the Hyuga's frustration. The Hyuga clan head let out a weary sigh as she slipped into a battle stance once again. She was past the point of this kind of enemies being a threat to her, but taking care of them was going to be a bother. Not to mention all the time she was going to waste. Shui and the others were fighting Tonari, and she needed to destroy the weapon as soon as possible. Fortunately, some help was on her way. Super Beast imitation drawing. Vacuum palm. Several tigers made of ink entered Hinata's expanded field of vision and pounced at the puppets incoming from the left, and multiple vacuum shells blasted the horde of puppets coming from the right. Hinata-sama, will take care of this rabble, a Hyuga Kunoichi said, as she engaged a moon puppet in direct combat. You go and find that weapon. Hinata nodded. Understood. Stay safe. She then turned towards the puppets coming from the gate she was about to cross, and thrust her hand forward. Lightning release, electric vacuum palm. From her open hand, Hinata cast a huge vacuum shell surrounded by lightning at the incoming group of enemies, which were helplessly blasted away the moment Hinata's attack made contact, hurling them to the sides, leaving an open way for the Hyuga to take. As Hinata continued flying around the citadel, more and more puppets came to stop her. This one's not dressed as ninjas or warriors, but as bolters, servants, maids, and other kind of domestic service. Some of them even had the appearance of children. Still, they weren't enough to stop her. Hinata only needed a wave of her hand to blast them with a barrage of lightning bolts, reducing them to burned piles of scrap, not slowing them down a little. Isn't there an end to these things? Hinata complained as she zapped yet another group of puppets. Thankfully, the answer seemed to be yes, as the moment she reached the lower levels of the citadel, no more puppets appeared to stop her, much to her relief. It didn't take long to reach her destination, a gigantic chamber holding an equally large golden sphere that somewhat resembled her Tensigan eyes. It irradiated pure power. So, this is the Tensigan chakra vessel, Hinata said in awe, as she slowly walked towards it. I can see its power flowing through the whole moon, powering Tonari's puppets, the artificial sun, all the Otsutsuki technology. What a breathtaking work, breathtaking indeed, another voice said besides her, making the Hyuga startle a little. Too bad it has to be destroyed. Hahimura-sama? Hinata asked, surprised. What are you doing here? I thought you could only appear in my dreams. Normally, it would be the case, the old man nodded. But with you being so close to my creation, I can manifest as an image while you're awake. Your creation? Hinata asked. Hamura nodded once again, smiling sadly. Yes. It was me who created this device in order to help my followers survive in the hostile environment of the moon, so we could build our civilization. Everything in the moon is connected to this sphere. I see, there was some pride, and a little melancholy, in Hamura's voice. The vessel was a magnificent work of art, and its technology could be used for so much good. This thoughts made Hinata hesitate in her actions. Hamura, however, seemed to notice Hinata's demeanor change, and continued speaking. Unfortunately, the tool I created to help my people here was corrupted into a weapon of war, first by the Otsutsuki branch house to wipe out the main house, and later by Tonari, to wage war on the people of Earth. Because of that, and the fact that no more people lives on the moon, it's time for this artifact to be destroyed. And only somebody with 6 paths chakra can do it safely. I understand, Hinata replied. I'll carry out my duty. No more words were needed. Hinata nodded, and took a few steps forward. She clenched her fists, and 2 purple lions made of chakra formed around them, crackling with electricity. Lastly, she leaped at the vessel. Lightning release, twin lion fists. Hinata slammed her fists into the vessel, producing a burst of lightning that coursed through the entire sphere. The giant golden orb started to blink, before it finally burst into thousands of small glowing white spheres, almost like marbles. Though, upon closer inspection, Hinata realized they weren't marbles at all. Wait a minute, these things there be a Byakugan. Hinata said in realization. Indeed. The vessel started as my own Tensigan and several volunteers Byakugan, and over the generations, more and more Byakugan were added to it, increasing its power little by little, until it reached enough destructive potential to wipe out an entire country. Even Tonari himself got his eyes removed when he was a child so they could be added to the weapon. Hamura's image started to waver. Thankfully, that weapon won't be used to cause more destruction anymore, Hinata. My child, only one thing remains: defeat Tonari and bring peace to my brother's world. With that, Hamura's image vanished completely, leaving the Hyuga alone. Understood, Hamura-sama. It's time for Tonari to pay for his crimes, Hinata said, as she turned around, ready to rejoin her squad mates and put an end to everything. Huh. However, much to her surprise, the mass of floating Byakugan quickly poured out of the room as if they had life of their own, like a large swarm of fireflies, much to the Hyuga's confusion. Meanwhile, inside the citadel, Sai, Takuma, and the rest of the Moon Squad were fighting tirelessly against the puppet army guarding the place, when all of a sudden, they stopped fighting and fell to the ground lifelessly. At the same time, the lights that illuminated the place went out, leaving all of them in the dark. What happened? And Hyuga asked. The puppet's chakra just disappeared all of a sudden. Wait, could it be? Takuma whispered, before he focused his enhanced sight below, where Hinata should be, until he found her. Yes, I can no longer see the source of chakra below the citadel. Hinata-sama destroyed it. Our mission has been a success then, Sai said, his lips curving into a small smile. Indeed, another Hyuga before her eyes drifted where Shisui and Tonari were fighting. However, Tonari is far from defeated. We must rejoin Hinata-sama and help her bring down Dash. She was interrupted when the mass of floating glowing Byakugan appeared from behind the gate Hinata had crossed to reach the chamber of the energy vessel, and continued their way until they reached outside. Meanwhile, in the courtyard, Tonari and Shisui were about to resume their fight, when the light coming from the artificial sun began to dim. Little by little at first, and faster later, the artificial sun started to break apart, until it vanished completely, leaving the place completely dark. The only source of light was Tonari's Tensigan chakra cloak, though Shisui created a little flame on the palm of his hand in order to see better. "What's going on?" Tonari asked, before he directed his expanded sight towards the chamber under the citadel. "No." Hinata reached the energy vessel and destroyed it. Yes, well done Hinata." Shisui cheered. "You lost, dumbass. Without your precious weapon, your puppet army is nothing but a bunch of oversized toys. Now come with us quietly if you want to live." The Tensigan energy vessel created by Hamura-sama himself, Tonari began, seemingly ignoring Shisui. His lips started to quiver. "The treasure my clan sacrificed our eyes to destroyed," Shisui tesned up. He didn't like where this was going. While the idea of Tonari surrendering wasn't something he considered a big possibility, now it was pretty much zero. If what Tonari said was true, the destruction of the energy vessel was a huge cultural and personal affront to him. His building rage would make him go on a rampage. Tonari then turned at Shisui, and much to the Uchiha's surprise, smirked and shrugged. "Oh well. Things happen." Now Shisui was taken aback. "That weapon was most of your power base. Not to mention all that stuff you said about sacrificing your eyes," Shisui noted. "Aren't you angry at us?" "Not even a little." "Angry?" Tonari placed a hand under his chin and pretended to be in deep thought. "I guess I should, right? But I just don't feel like it." Okay, now Shisui was really worried. This was even worse than the previous scenario. The destruction of their Tensigan chakra vessel didn't affect him as much as Shisui and everybody else had anticipated. That meant Tonari knew something everybody else was unaware of. Something that right now made him extremely dangerous. And Shisui was now going to learn to which extent. Tonari extended his hand towards the citadel, and that moment, a swarm of glowing white lights, thanks to his Sharingan, Shisui could tell they were Byakugan, came from the main door, flying towards the last Otsutsuki. The light started to latch onto Tonari, until they covered it completely. The mass of Byakugan turned into pure white chakra, forming a sphere of pure white light, forcing the Uchiha to shield his eyes with his hand. Then, after a couple seconds of silence, the sphere of light burst like a balloon, revealing Tonari. At first sight, Tonari didn't look any different than he did a few seconds ago. But thanks to his enhanced vision, Shisui could see that the strength of his chakra had been multiplied. Startled, and admittedly afraid, Shisui stumbled backwards. Tonari was now on a completely different level. Not even with his Senjutsu Susanoo could beat him now. "Ah, that reaction. I guess that thanks to your eyes you realize the situation you're in," Tonari said, pridefully smirking. "With my Tensigan, I can absorb the power of the energy vessel into my body, and with it, I can finally do this." Tonari started to make hand seals, and teal flames burst around him. Tensigan Chakra Cloak, perfect form. All of Tonari's latent power was brought to the surface with a burst of chakra that, for a Sharingan wielder like Shisui, was like looking directly into a lightning bolt. But that was nothing to what followed later. If the Tensigan Chakra Cloak gave its user the appearance of being surrounded by fire, the perfect form made Tonari look as if he was made of fire, with a kimono made of that chakra flames adorned with magatamas covering his body, and S single horn extending from his forehead. With these eyes, Tonari began, his smirk turning into a vicious smile. I shall destroy the Sage of the Six Paths world, and create a new one in its place. Tonari. Both Tonari and Shursui turned around, and saw Hinata, accompanied by two shadow clones, flying out of the citadel. Ah, my princess, your timing couldn't have been better, Tonari said. As you can see, destroying the energy vessel did nothing but make me even stronger. Please, submit yourself to me peacefully. I don't want to fight you again. Shursui-san, go with the others. Thanks for your effort, but this enemy is far too much for you, Hinata told him, as she and her clones placed themselves between the Otsutsuki and the Uchiha. I shall deal with him. You won't be able to beat him by yourself. Shursui said. His power is much greater than before. I know. But fear not, I have a plan, Hinata said, as she fixed Tonari a stare full of determination. Very well then. If you have to fight me again, so be it, Tonari said, shaking his head. But I won't hold back. I love you, my princess, but if you keep opposing me, you leave me no choice but to use my full power to make you accept your place. I would never expect you to be merciful, Hinata replied, as she and her clones charged forward. Hinata opened the fight with a powerful palm strike that Tonari blocked, but carried so much power it pushed him backwards, producing a booming thunderclap. Then the clones followed suit, repeating the move through from different angles. The trio surrounded Tonari and attacked him from afar before he had any chance to defend himself. Vacuum palm wall. Lightning release, thunderbolt. Lightning release, protection of the 8 trigram 64 palms. The three Hinatas cast multiple purple lightning bolts, a wave of compressed air and a barrage of lightning needles at Tonari. The Otsutsuki merely smirked, and raised his hand forward. A green glowing sphere appeared, which quickly split into 8 spheres, revealing to be truth-seeking balls once they lost their glow. They then merged and took the shape of a large shield, protecting Tonari. The shield then quickly reverted back to the 8 black orbs. 8? Hinata asked in shock. Yes, the number of truth-seeking balls I can summon has doubled. And this is only but an iota of the power I now possess thanks to my perfect Tensigan chakra cloak, Tonari boasted. He made a hand wave, and 6 of his 8 the truth-seeking balls grew and elongated, taking the shape of gigantic nail-like spears. With another hand wave, he launched them at Hinata, while the remaining 2 kept floating behind him. The Hyuga and her clones flew away from the attack in different directions, causing the black spear to split from them as well. Tonari has become much more powerful than before, and so quickly, the Hyuga thought, as she fell from 2 black spears. She felt how a clone died, and its memories returned to her. But I can't waver now. I need to hold him back a little longer. Meanwhile, in the courtyard in front of the citadel, Sai had just summoned enough ink birds for everybody to ride. We can't just stay here, Sai said. We either have to help Hinata-san deal with the enemy, or we should find a safer place to stay. What are we going to do? As much as it pains me, we can't help Hinata-sama, Takuma said, shaking his head. If we tried to help her we'd only get in the way. Even if it sounds cowardly, I think the best we can do is to leave this place so she can fight without having to worry about us. Takuma's suggestion was met with murmurs of agreement, as he and the others went to climb the ink birds. Shursui, however, remained in place, intently watching the clash taking place above him. Shursui-san and Hyuga Kunoichi said, "We need to leave, now. I know you must feel angry right now, but it's not that," the Uchiha replied. "There's something wrong. The way Hinata's fighting, it's nothing like other times. She's holding back." "What do you mean? Are you suggesting that Hinata-sama is holding back?" another Hyuga asked. "Why she'd do such a thing?" "No, I think Shursui-san's right," the Hyuga woman replied, as she looked at the fight more intently. "For starters, she isn't using her truth-seeking balls, despite being her best asset so far. She isn't using Sage Mode either, despite mastering it just like me, and it being the only way to counter Tonari's own truth-seeking balls, Shursui added. I figured that maybe Hinata-sama would keep a clone or two hidden inside the citadel to draw nature energy, the Hyuga Kunoichi said, as her gaze drifted towards the large, ornate building. But there isn't any. One of those two is the actual Hinata-sama. She must have a plan then, Takuma observed. But what? We'll have to trust her. Now come on, let's get out of here, the Hyuga woman urged the others. As they got onto their ink birds and fled, Hinata and her remaining clone continued her near-hopeless struggle against Tonari. This time, the Otsutsuki wasn't satisfied with letting his truth-seeking balls do the job, and went directly after one of the two Hinatas. He grabbed her by the neck, the chakra surrounding his hand glowing brighter than the rest of his cloak, and began siphoning her chakra. Hinata exploded into a poof of smoke, meaning it was the other clone. Chakra absorption too? The Hyuga asked in shock. Of course I can absorb chakra. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to seal the 10 tails into my body. The perfect mode cloak is magnificent, isn't it? Tonari asked, smiling arrogantly. Now, my dear princess, will you stop this charade already? Tonari asked in a mocking manner. Or do I need to use brute force? You saw already you don't stand a chance against me. Hinata, however, wasn't deterred. You aren't the first enemy I fought with the power of the 6 paths. Multiple vacuum palm. Hinata thrust her arms back and forth, sending a barrage of vacuum shells at Tonari, who effortlessly blocked them with his many truth-seeking balls. He then waved a hand, and sent a single black orb into Hinata, slamming it into her gut, making her double over. The orb then started to glow with an emerald glow. Don't worry, I'll make sure you'll sustain minimal damage, Tonari said in a reassuring but still condescending manner, before he made the orb explode. The rest of the Moon Squad, watching from afar, saw in horror as the explosion sent Hinata tumbling towards the main courtyard, landing with a loud thud. Hinata-sama, many Hyuga screamed. Sai, turn the birds around. We need to get to her before that monster does. Takuma urged. Sai was about to do so, when suddenly, something happened that caught everybody else by surprise. Hinata disappeared in a poof of smoke. There was a moment of silence as everybody processed what had happened, including Tonari. His expression went from dumbfounded, to desperate, to anger in mere seconds, as he frantically began to scan his surroundings. What? A clone? How? He asked, looking around. Despite his vision encompassing the whole area, there was no trace of Hinata. Where is she? Where is she? Why I can't find her? There's no way she could have evaded my sight and escaped this place. Meanwhile, inside the citadel, surrounded by nothing but darkness, Hinata was floating mid-air, in a sitting position with her legs crossed, her hands softly closed and touching each other by the knuckles, as she gathered nature energy. Besides buying her time for preparing Sage Mode, her clones also served as scouts to gauge Tonari's new power. The fact that he could create 8 truth-seeking balls as opposed to 4 was troubling enough, but that chakra-absorbing ability was a completely new headache. At the very least, he wouldn't catch her flat-footed with those abilities, though Hinata had the feeling that Tonari had more nasty surprises prepared for her. Since her clones had been destroyed, she could no longer remain hidden. She wished she had more time, but resigned to use the nature energy she had time to collect, hoping it would be enough. She opened her eyes, purple marks appearing around them, stood up, and with a wave of her hand, the sphere she created as a shield broke apart, reverting back to the 4 truth-seeking balls, before flying up to the citadel's entrance. There she is, and Hyuga said, sounding relieved. Her chakra network is saturated with nature energy, another Hyuga said, scanning her with his Byakugan. Guess she was using the clones as a distraction while she prepared Sage Mode. Tonari also seemed to be relieved as well. So, you were still here after all. Though, I can't still help but wonder how did you evade my sight, the white-haired man said. This time, it was Hinata's turn to smirk. By copying the same little trick you used to ambush us before, I used my truth-seeking balls to hide. Neither the Byakugan nor Tensigan can see past them. So, you hid while you prepared Sage Mode, and send 3 shadow clones to both keep my attention away from the real you and learn about my new abilities. A cunning plan, indeed, Tonari praised. Thank you. But flattery will get you nowhere, you should know that by now, Hinata replied, her stare hardening. Perhaps. But if my flattery failed to accomplish something, I have power to make up for it, Tonari said, smiling menacingly at her. Plus your sage mode won't do you any good. The Uchiha over there is also a sage, yet I defeated him even if I didn't have the power I have now. You're awfully prone to underestimating your opponents. I thought that your many past defeats would have corrected such habit. I'll make sure this is the last time you make that mistake, Hinata said. However, before we fight, I'd like to ask you something. This seemed to amuse Tonari, who smiled in return, mildly curious. Sure, ask away. I'll answer anything you might want to know, if it's of my knowledge. Whose are those eyes you're wearing? Hinata said, taking Tonari a little aback. I know they aren't yours, because the Byakugan of a branch house Otsutsuki can't evolve into a Tensigan. Not to mention that I know that your original eyes were part of the energy vessel. Why does it matter whose eyes were this? The man they used to belong to is dead. Now they're my eyes. The eyes that will reshape the world, Tonari boasted. During the Uchiha insurrection, several Hyugas witnessed a masked man with a Sharingan and would release. A man we'd later find was Obito Uchiha, taking part in the attack of the Hyuga compound. Not only did that man kill my father, but then he desecrated his body by stealing his eyes. His, and the eyes of the other Hyugas that died defending their home from the Uchihas. Then, years later, you show up all of a sudden, as a member of Akatsuki, with those Tensigan, under Obito's mind control, Hinata said, fixing Tonari a hard glare. Those eyes are my father's, aren't they? Like I said before, what if they were? He doesn't need them. These eyes are mine because I made them mine. Just like how I will make you mine, my princess, Tonari replied. I don't belong to you, and neither do those eyes. I plan to take those eyes back, and return them to their legitimate owner, even if he's no longer alive. Hinata shouted, as she started to make hand seals. Tensigan Chakra Cloak, Perfect Mode. Hinata burst into massive lavender flames, before said flames surrounded Hinata completely. The amethyst flame surrounding her body took the shape of an elegant kimono adorned with black magatamas, similar to Tonari's. Her 4 truth-seeking balls split into 2, allowing her to have 8 orbs at once, just like Tonari. This time, it was Tonari's turn to be surprised. Perfect cloak? But how? Again, I did it by copying you. You absorbed those Byakugan to give yourself a power boost and bring the cloak to its full power. I did the same using Senjutsu. Now we're evenly matched. Tonari's shock was short-lived, and his stunned expression quickly morphed into a smile of satisfaction. When I think I have you figured out, you find a way to surprise me. No wonder I love you so much. Now, I can fight without holding back and not be afraid of harming you too much. Hinata scowled. I will never give you the chance of harming me, or anybody else for that matter. This ends now. And thus, Hinata Hyuga, the last heiress of the Otsutsuki main house, and Tonari Otsutsuki, last member of the Otsutsuki branch house, engaged in battle for the last time.